By 6:40, I was already moving through the morning without thinking about it much. Shower first, then clothes from the chair where I had left them the night before, black jeggings, a white long-sleeved blouse, my loose pink sweater, and the pair of black Converse I wore almost every day. I tied my hair back into a ponytail, grabbed my school bag, and went downstairs. Mom and Dad were at the breakfast table, both of them settling in like they actually had time to enjoy the morning. I kissed Mom on the cheek, then Dad picked up an apple from the fruit bowl, and headed for the front door before either of them could tell me to sit down and eat properly. The sun had already climbed high enough to warm the sidewalk. Traffic was lighter than usual, and the air had that clean, early day feel to it, so I left my car in the driveway and walked. My life was ordinary. At least, that was what I told myself. I went to school, got decent grades, came home, did homework, and tried not to attract the wrong kind of attention. The only thing that made me stand out was the label everyone had given me. Nerd. It could have been worse. People teased me, threw insults, laughed when they thought I could hear. Most days, it stopped there. No blood. No broken skin. Nothing bad enough to make an adult step in and ask questions. I had one friend. One was enough. One real friend mattered more than a dozen people who only stayed close when it suited them. Pinky. The scream cut through the hallway like an alarm. Before I could turn, Brielle threw herself at me, all blonde hair and perfume and too much energy for that early in the morning. Her arms locked around me while half the hallway stopped to stare. Brielle, I said, lowering my voice and giving the students around us an awkward glance, please remember we are inside. She leaned back, grinning like she had just won something. I haven't seen my best friend all break. I am allowed to be excited. Excited, yes. Deafening, maybe not. She ignored that and bounced on her toes. I laughed despite myself. Brielle had always been like that, loud feelings, loud opinions, loud everything. It was embarrassing sometimes, but it was also nice being missed by someone who meant it. Come on, I told her. We still need to pick up our schedules. She talked the entire way to the office. Senior year, freedom, parties she knew I would never attend, teachers she hoped we would not get, outfits she wanted to buy. I let her fill the silence. With Brielle, silence was usually a sign that something had gone terribly wrong. We got our schedules and stepped back into the busy hallway. I scanned mine first. Math first period. Brielle looked at hers and immediately pouted. History. At least we have English and gym together. She gave a dramatic sigh. Fine. I can survive on that. We said goodbye at the next turn and went our separate ways. Math had barely started when the classroom door flew open hard enough to make everyone look up. Nathan Callahan walked in like being late was part of his personality. He did not apologize. He did not hurry. He just strolled toward the back of the room with his hands in his pockets, carrying that careless confidence everyone seemed to either hate or admire. Mr. Henderson folded his arms over his chest. Mr. Callahan, would you care to explain why you are late? Nathan kept walking. My grandmother went missing. Mr. Henderson's face tightened. Last week, you told me your grandmother died. Nathan dropped into the chair at the back. That would explain why I couldn't find her. The room broke into laughter. Mr. Henderson stood there, blinking, while Nathan leaned back as if nothing had happened. Then the bell rang. Nathan looked almost offended by the timing, pushed himself back up, and left with the rest of us. The morning blurred after that. By lunch, I was at my usual table with Brielle sitting across from me, listening to her talk about Zick Ronelli for what had to be the 100th time. Zick was Nathan's friend, which seemed to make him even more interesting to her. And he actually understands literature, she said, dropping her chin into her hand. Meanwhile, I read the same page 3 times and still have no idea what is going on. That book is evil. Who even wrote it? The mayor of Casterbridge, I said. Thomas Hardy. And you might understand it better if you actually opened it. Brielle straightened and stared at me like I had personally wounded her. Pinky, we are friends. Best friends. You could try supporting me once in a while. I took a bite of my apple and gave her a look. You call me Pinky even though I have asked you to stop about 1,000,000 times. My name is Abigail. My parents chose it on purpose. But Abby is boring, she said as the lunch bell rang. Pinky fits you. You own more pink than anyone I know. I own 3 pink things. 3 very committed pink things. We tossed our trash on the way back inside, and Bree headed toward her locker while I went to mine. Our lockers were several yards apart, which was usually fine. Until I heard heels. 3 pairs of them. The sharp clicks crossed the tile behind me, steady and deliberate. My hand froze on the inside of my locker door. No, I muttered under my breath. The footsteps stopped. Hey, nerd. I closed my eyes for 1 second, then turned around. Naomi stood in the center, of course. Victoria was on one side, Sienna on the other, both looking at me like I had inconvenienced them by existing. Naomi smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. Hi, Naomi, I said. Victoria's eyebrows shot up. Wow. So we are invisible now? I swallowed. Sorry. Hi, Victoria. Hi, Sienna. They both rolled their eyes. Naomi reached back without looking, and Sienna handed her a short stack of books. Naomi shoved them toward me. These need to be done by tomorrow morning, she said. All of it. Correctly. Do you understand? I took the books before they could fall. Yes. That was all she wanted from me. The 3 of them turned and walked away, hair swinging, nails perfect, heels clicking against the floor like they had just won again. Bree appeared beside me a moment later, her face tight with anger. Are you really going to do all of that for them? I looked down at the books pressed against my chest. What else am I supposed to do? If I refuse, they hurt me. If I mess it up, they hurt me anyway. I'd rather get through tomorrow without bruises. Bree stared down the hallway where Naomi had disappeared. She is a senior, she said, voice low. You would think she would have grown out of this by now. One day, I swear, someone needs to make her feel exactly what she does to everyone else. All right, class, settle down. This term we are going to be running things different. I'm going to partner you up, and as a pair you are going to work on an assignment which will be part of your grades. But this time I will make up the pairs. Sienna and James Brielle and Ryder Bella and Christian Petra and Zick. I was no longer listening as my eyes were focused on my best friend walking away with a sad expression to her appointed partner. My senses were immediately awoken when I heard my name being announced. And finally Abigail and Nathan. My life came to a standstill as I took a moment to wreck my brain on the number of Nathan that I know and learn with, and turns out it was only one. I craned my neck to the back of the class where he is normally situated, and sure enough that's where he is. I pick up my things and slowly head towards him. I pulled out the chair, making it scrap against the ground, and sit down without a word, feeling intimidated by high presence. I've realized that many of you are failing your literature analysis or registers if you must, so I want you to get to know your partner. After 3 weeks I want you to submit a write-up about each other's characteristics, habits, and basically anything you deem fit for the assignment. Of which 3 weeks is a very long time, so I will not need any excuses. You may start. She finished off and walked over to her table, not even minding what we were doing. I hesitantly craned my neck to face him. He did not even seem to be paying attention to anything but the field on the other side of the window. If staring is part of your hobbies, then it's really bad, you need to change it. As he said that, I quickly averted my gaze to the book sitting in front of me. At this moment, I was just glad that I was not blushing. Do you want to start the assignment? I tilted my head a little only to see that he hadn't taken his eyes off the field. Make up the questions, then we can start later. He grabbed his bag and got up just as the bell rang. By the time I got home I was so exhausted from doing mountain-like homework for the she-devils at the library that I ended up falling into a deep slumber. I woke up in the middle of the night after having a disturbing dream. I knew that I was not going to get any sleep, so I went downstairs, took a glass of water and went back with it to my room. I made use of the time that I got and wrote my assignments. Before I knew it, it was time for me to prepare for school. In no time I was done with my daily morning routines. Unfortunately, I stumbled upon one of the desk's legs, causing my leftover water to spill all over the work I had done for Victoria, Sienna, and Naomi. I shrieked in horror as I faced the now ink-smudged pile of papers. Oh my gosh, I am so dead. I wiped off the water, only to make it worse. I even tried blow-drying them, but it was of no use, so I was left with no other choice but to own up. You did what? Sienna screamed out at me. I could feel my body starting to tremble with fear due to the glares that I was receiving from 3 angles. I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to spill water over your work. I can rewrite it before your lesson begins. Naomi moved closer to me with her hands on her hips in an intimidating manner, making me cower away. I want my work done by the second period. I stared at her dumbfounded. But I have to do my own English assignment in first period. Well, work it out, nerd. I just want to see all of our work finished. That was her last say as she flipped her hair back, turned on her heels and walked away with the other two following behind. At least I was grateful that no harm came my way and Bree was not here, or else she would have surely added to the fire by talking back to Naomi. Unfortunately, I had to miss my English lesson just so I could finish all the work for my bullies. As soon as the bell rang, I quickly made my way to the hallway. Whilst on my way there, I bumped into someone but did not bother looking up to see whom it was. I mumbled a sorry and was about to continue on my journey, but a hand grabbed my forearm and pulled me back. I frowned as I looked up, only to see Nathan with Zik beside him. My expression changed immediately and was replaced by that of realization. Nathan. I stood there gaping at him. Nathan Callahan was actually holding my arm. That surely was worthy of going down into the book of records. Why weren't you in the lesson? I know that I'm not that concerned about getting better grades, but I know that you are obsessed with it. I could feel myself starting to sweat. I would never risk my perfect attendance in literature, but when it comes to a matter of my personal well-being, then I am forced to. Sorry, I was getting some work done in the library. He immediately gave me a quizzical look. What work? Before I could actually respond, Naomi arrived with her minions. Hey Nate and Zik. They all say in unison before their smiles turn into scowls as they look at me. EW Nathan, why are you holding that flea bag? Sienna voiced out. Juliana immediately pushes my hand away from Nathan's, successfully making me stumble back a little. Geeks, nerds, and freaks like you are not supposed to be hanging around people like us. Juliana motions towards the five of them. So, did you finish our work? Sienna states, and I nod slightly as I looked at the Times floor. Give it. She demands, and I immediately hand her the pile of books in my hands. Oh, and remember, stay away from Nathan and Zik. Naomi announces, and I respond with another nod. Leave. I raise my head and catch a glimpse of Nathan giving me an expressionless look. I turn on my heels and make my way to my gym class, where I know none of the aforementioned five will not be in. At least that's something good happening so far. You should have told me earlier. I would have found an excuse to punch them hard in the face. I know that you don't mind much since you are getting more knowledge, but they are using you, and that is so bad. Brielle fumed out as we were warming up in the gym hall for our gymnastics lesson. Like I said, Brie, just let it be. I'm okay with it as long as I am fine and unharmed. She scoffed in an unladylike manner as she said, yeah right, I'm going to take care of them someday. I chuckled before saying, sure you will. I ruffled her hair, making her swat my arm away whilst letting out some profanities, and fixed the mess. We all craned our necks to the sound of the main doors opening, revealing Mrs. Hayes, the principal. Walking behind her were the three she-devils. I had just lost them in the hallway and now they are here. I couldn't believe my luck. Attention. I'm sorry to say, but Mrs. Kingston will not be joining you for this lesson. She is not quite herself today, so for the time being, you have Naomi, Sienna, and Victoria to teach you, since they are the best cheerleaders we have. With that, the principal left us to face the wrath of the three witches. As soon as their eyes fell on me, mischievous grins plastered their faces. All right everyone, get in rows of 5 and make sure that you are not too close to each other. Victoria commanded. I had a feeling that something bad was going to happen, and sure enough it did. We were doing the cartwheel, according to Naomi's instructions. Whilst in the middle of doing my wheel, Sienna came and tugged at my leg, making me slam into the ground, head first. I had hit my head so hard, I could feel a warm liquid flowing out of my nose. I brought up my hand to my nose and brushed my finger against it. Sure enough, a lot of blood was coming out. Brielle ran up to me and held me by my shoulders, looking worried. Abby, are you okay? I was actually surprised that in such situations, that's only when she sees it necessary to call me by my real name. I don't know, do I look okay? She rolled her eyes at my untimely humor. She suddenly got serious as she stood up and made her way to Sienna, who was standing by her other two grinning friends. You did it on purpose, didn't you? She rolled her eyes as she took a look at her nails. Maybe I did, or maybe I didn't. Her response was one without any ounce of care. You little. Bree yelled as she jumped on top of her, pulling her hair out and scratching her arms since they were in between her claws and Sienna's face. I knew that I had to get to the nurse's office quick, but I also could not leave Bree alone. Taking off my wristband, I press it onto my nose to stop the bleeding. I quickly made my way through a couple of people before finally getting to Brielle, who was now struggling with all three of the witches. After a long struggle and a lot of tugging, I pulled her away as she was fuming with anger. Her hair was everywhere but not a single scratch in sight. With Sienna's sleeveless top, I could see more than 5 nail marks showing that Bree had given her. Before anything else could happen, I pulled Brielle and myself out of the gym along with our belongings. Are you sure that you want to stay here? The nurse asked Bree for the 5th time now, and she still responded with the same answer. I really want to make sure that my best friend is okay. Thankfully, I only sprained my ankle and it was not that much of a problem. I now had a frozen bag over my nose just to make sure that the bleeding would stop completely. Well, since there is not that much to look into anymore and your nose is no longer bleeding, you can go back. I handed her the frozen bag, set out my gratitude and walked out to lunch with Bree. The cafeteria was not full and at the same time it was not empty. I was not in the mood for anything heavy, so I only bought a packet of crisps and a bottle of water whilst Bree got 2 slices of pizza, some salad and a bottle of water. Thankfully, there were no events in the cafeteria since the 3 witches she-devils were nowhere in sight. I mostly chatted with Bree, who was rather mad at me for not letting her damage Sienna's face. I knew that if I had left her to continue with her fight, then she would have been one to get into more trouble, even though Sienna was the one at fault. As we were walking in the hallway, I could literally feel every single pair of eyes glaring daggers at my back, and I was aware that Bree knew the reason why, since she did fight with Sienna. I was actually thankful that it was finally time for people to either go home or attend their after-school activities. As for me, I am only into books, music, food, and happiness. I mainly do the school work because I am required to, and if it makes my parents happy, then why not impress them more and get all A's in my classes. Bree leaves as she heads to the library to return and take some books, which of course were more pictures than words. I make my way to my car when I spot Nathan heading towards his X5 BMW and quickly rush over to him. Nathan, can I talk to you? He faces me with a neutral look. Well, you are already talking. He deadpans, making me push down the huge lump forming in my throat. I just wanted us to, start our assignment. And I wanted to know when we can do it. He scoffs. We can do it a day before the due date. It's not a big deal. Just because you are a nerd does not mean that I have to be one too, like you. His words greatly offended me and got me angry, so I chucked caution out in the wind. Listen here, I said whilst jabbing my finger on his hard chest. I really do not care what you think of me, but what I do know is that I don't want to see any grade below C on my report. Tomorrow we are doing our intro whether you like it or not, and if you have anything against it then go whine out your problem to Mrs. Robert. I finished my rant whilst breathing heavily. I walked to my car, and since my outburst, Nathan never uttered a single word. He just stared at me. As soon as I drove out of the school gates with my adrenaline wearing off, I was starting to regret my actions. My short-found courage was long gone and was now replaced with fear over what Nathan might do to me the following day. I was surprised to find myself already parking in the driveway. As I walk into the house, I was startled by the sound of a muffled bark. In front of me stood my parents, and in my mom's arms is a small, white fur-covered bundle of joy in the form of a puppy. Oh my gosh, a puppy! I squeal and rush to them, to cuddle the fur ball. This caused both my parents to chuckle. Yep, and he's all yours, Mom announces. My jaw hung open as I stare at my parents in sheer disbelief. Are you being serious? Yet again they both laugh, and this time Dad answers. Yes, dear. We figured that since we are not around much, then maybe some company would do you right. I gave a loud squeal as I thanked my parents one more time and jogged up to my room to show Rex my room. He was so adorable that I ended up sleeping late whilst playing with him. The hardest part was having to leave him alone in the house when had to go to school. I did think of taking him along, but remembered that trouble always followed me, and with Rex as an addition, then nothing will end well. No way, you got a puppy? Bree squealed as she faced my little fur ball. I just could not leave him behind when he started whimpering with his ears low and showed me his cute pair of puppy eyes. And you brought it to school? Bree questioned, and I immediately cover her mouth. Quiet down. Someone might hear. Besides, I couldn't leave him alone. He would feel so lonely. So will you help me hide him? It did not take much for Brielle to agree. We were currently in the ladies' room, which was by far empty except for myself and Brie. We heard the sound of 3 pairs of heels clicking against the tiled floor. Immediately, we rushed into the same cubicle and closed the door. I can't believe what he did to me. I actually thought that we were going to be together forever. Victoria wailed out to her 2 best friends. Come on, Anna, you don't have to waste your tears for that cheat. He was not worthy of you anyway. Sienna comforted. Just then the bell rang indicating the beginning of lessons, but then surely we could not leave yet. How about you try out your luck with Zick? After all, he is cute and is obviously Nathan's friend, and by the way, Nathan is off limits. He is mine even though he doesn't know it yet. Naomi bragged, making me almost release a scoff which unfortunately was made by Rex. My eyes widened in horror as the room became quiet. Suddenly, the door was yanked open, revealing 3 angry faces. Both Brielle and I flinched as the door slammed against the wall. Oh, look what the cat dragged in. Sienna slurred out. And they brought a dog, which I am pretty sure is against the rules. I wonder what Mrs. Hayes will do when she hears about this. Naomi spoke out with an evil glare towards Rex, who was in my bag. I knew that losing Rex would not be easy after I had just got him, so with the little amount of adrenaline that was running through me, I pushed all 3 out of the way and dragged Brie out. We dashed out into the hallway, getting a head start on our getaway. As soon as we heard them coming, we ran for the nearest exit, which was leading to the school's rugby field. I exchanged my bag with Brielle quickly and gave her my car keys in order for her to return Rex home. Unfortunately for me, I was left with nowhere to hide, and before I could process anything, I was surrounded. Hand over the puppy, Victoria demanded. And no. Naomi smirked as she stepped forward with an evil glint in her eyes. You broke my nail when you pushed me down, and you are so going to regret that. Her hand shot up in the air ready to strike my cheek. As it started to descend, I immediately closed my eyes and waited in anticipation of the sting that was to come. Instead, my eyes shot open as a deep voice spoke up. Don't even think about it. In front of me stood Nathan, who had Naomi's wrist in his hand. I only stared in shock as the scene unfolded in front of me. He threw back Naomi's hand, leaving her other 2 minions dumbstruck. What? Why did you do that? She snapped. Nathan did not offer her a response, but instead took my hand in his and dragged me back into the school building. As soon as we entered the hallway, he swung me around, making me face him. What did you do this time? He asked with a face void of any emotions. I faced him with a scowl. That's for me to know. I bit back and turned, about to walk away, but was pulled back by my forearm. I was pushed against the lockers, and he put both his hands on either side of my head, preventing me from walking away. I'll ask again. What did you do? He said it in a manner that I could not even lie anymore. I had brought a. Before I could finish my sentence, Brielle showed up from behind Nathan, and without looking, she just started talking. Pinky, I took the puppy hoe. She stopped in her tracks as her eyes grew wide in shock. Nathan did not even move to check whom it was. You brought a puppy to school and Naomi found out. She wanted to get you in trouble, but you managed to get the puppy out of sight before she could get her hands on it. Is that it? He asked with a knowing look, which I answered with a nod. Just try to make sure that you stay out of trouble. He warned, and yet again I answered with a nod. He stared at me with a smirk, a second longer, then pushed himself off the lockers and walked away without looking back. What was that? Brielle questioned as disbelief was evident on her features. Can we just go for the lesson? I can't even process anything right now. I whisper back and made my way to my science lesson, which fortunately did not have either Nathan, Naomi, Sienna, or Victoria. The whole lesson was kind of a blur, and it went by quickly. Before I knew it, I was already making my way to the cafeteria where Bree was waiting for me. I came to a quick stop as a crew of boys blocked my path. In front of them was Tyler, captain of the basketball team. Abigail Bennett, we've been looking for you. Do you mind having a chat with us? In private. Before I could reject his offer, he quickly grabbed onto my arm and pulled me towards the study room, his crew following behind. As soon as he got into the room, the door was closed and locked from the outside. He stood by the door, arms crossed over his chest and his left leg propped up on the wall. Finally, it took you long enough. Out of nowhere, Naomi and her 2 minions showed up, all with evil looks directed towards me. Now listen here, Abigail. We thought we had made it clear that nerds like you are not to be associated with populars like us and Nathan. Yet along with going against that, you also humiliated us in front of Nathan. And for that you are about to receive your punishment." Naomi spat viciously with the same evil glint in her eyes. They all proceeded to advance towards me, and before I could retreat, I was getting beatings, hard ones. They were all making sure not to hurt any spots that would show anyone that I had just gotten a beating. After what felt like eternity, they finally stopped. They stood before my scarred body admiring their work. "Stay away from Nathan," Naomi warned and made her way to the door. "Don't even think of stating any of this to anyone or you are dead," Victoria demanded, following behind Naomi. "And do tell your friend that she is next," Sienna stated, and with that they all left like nothing ever happened, along with Tyler. The good news was that I did not bleed, and at the moment I was kind of numb, so only a little bit of pain managed to sip through. But the bad news was that I was now going to tarnish my perfect school attendance by going back home. Thankfully, I was able to make it to the parking lot since lunch had already passed and everyone was in their classrooms. I was almost at my car when a hand gripped my own, twisting me around and making me hiss in pain from the movement. "Hey nerd, are you skipping school?" Nathan asked as he faced me with a cocky grin on his face. "Just please go away, Nathan," I whisper back as I carefully removed my hand from his iron-like grip, which he only tightened. "Are you okay?" he asked as concern laced his every word. "Not now, Nathan. Please just let me go," I pleaded as I avoided his gaze. "I'm not letting you go, so you better start talking, and for crying out loud just look at me. Tell me what the problem is," he yelled out in anger. I swiftly raised my head up to look, and due to the rage within me, I snapped. "You are my problem. Ever since the day I had been paired up with you. All thanks to you, I am now on Naomi's to kill list. And guess what? I'm at the top of the damn list. She barely knew of my existence if not for doing her work, but all because of you I now have to deal with them. So please do me a favor and just stay away from me. I beg of you, and I promise I will do anything else you ask of me. Just please don't get me into more trouble than what I am already enduring." By the end of my rant, my voice was close to a whisper and my eyes were threatening to spill out the tears they had kept since I got the beating. "What about our assignment?" His tone was cold and his face was void of any emotions, no surprise there. "I'll do it myself." With that he let go of my hand and walked back into the school building, and only then did I notice Zick standing a few feet away. He had witnessed everything that had happened between myself and Nathan. I finally got home, and by then my numbness was starting to wear off, meaning that I could feel most of the pain. I limped my way into the kitchen where I found a sticky note on the fridge and some cash on the table. Walking over to the fridge, I grabbed some ice from inside and proceeded to read the note. "Hey Maddie, sorry we won't be able to make it home before dinner. We've got a lot of cases in our hands, but we made sure to leave behind $20. Get yourself a pizza or something. Love, Mom and Dad." I sighed as I put the pack of ice onto my stomach, wincing in the process. So much for having parents who work at a law firm. By the time I got to my bathroom, I was breathing heavily and my eyes already held pools of unshed tears. I applied ointment on each and every bruise, and when I was finally done, I slumped against the door and let out all my feelings through crying. Rex even came and tried to comfort me, but he only ended up whimpering alongside my sobbing, and I hugged him tight against my chest. After a few hours, I was awoken from my sleep when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. I took it out and answered without looking at the caller ID. "Hello?" My voice came out all groggy. "Pinky, are you okay?" The voice of my worried best friend came through. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Why?" "Well, Zick said he saw you leaving the school after lunch, and I just had to check up on you." "Are you sure that you are all right?" I was rather grateful that Zick hadn't said anything about the state that I was in. "I guess, I just twisted my ankle and thought it best to visit the doctor, but it's nothing serious." I heard her sigh on the other end of the line before responding, "I have a feeling there is more to the story, so you better tell me everything tomorrow, but for now please take care of yourself." "I will, bye." She bid me farewell and hung up the call. It was already 4 p.m., meaning that I had been asleep for 3 hours on the bathroom floor and Rex was nowhere in sight. As soon as I tried to get up, a massive wave of pain from my injuries caused me to stumble back onto the ground. After a few more tries, I finally got onto my feet. I called the pizza delivery guy and ordered myself a box. Walking into the living room, I slumped onto the couch when a thought crept into my mind. Today was the first time that I had ever gotten physically bullied, which had me thinking. Was I the only one that they had physically bullied, or was I simply one of the many victims? I snapped out of my chain of thought when the sound of the doorbell ringing filled the hollow house. With the money in my hand, I walked over to the door. The pizza was delivered by a man probably in his early 20s with slick black hair, dark brown eyes, and he was clad in the usual red uniform. I grabbed my Hawaiian pizza and gave him the $20 bill. "Sorry, but I do not have change for a 20. He stated in his slightly deep voice. It's okay. Just keep the change." "I don't want it." I replied back in a low tone. "I will hold on to it for you, and whenever you feel like using it, just drop by the Pizza King," he said with a warm smile, which I did not bother returning. "Thanks." He turned around and walked back to his delivery van. I took out 3 slices of pizza and put the rest in the refrigerator, making sure to feed Rex before calling it a day. I woke up a little earlier than usual and took my daily shower. My injuries were now dark purple blots, but with less pain. I was also still limping slightly, although not noticeable. I applied more ointment onto my wounds before going downstairs for my breakfast. My food was already on the table, with both my parents running around making coffee for themselves, which meant that they were going out already. As soon as I sat down, they turned to me, now with a mug each in their hands. "Hey honey," they said out in unison. "Morning, Mom and Dad." Dad proceeded to give me a kiss on my forehead. "Gotta go," he said before rushing out, and a few seconds later I heard his Range Rover pulling out of the garage. "Honey, I have to go. There is dinner in the fridge, make sure to heat it up before eating it, and I might come back late, so do not wait up," she said as she walked over to me and kissed my forehead. "Have fun in school, but not too much." I smiled back at her as she waved and walked out. I walked back to my room as I heard her Land Cruiser driving off. Since I had a lot of time to spare, I ended up bathing Rex before leaving for school. "Pinky, are you okay?" Brielle asked as I stood by my locker. "Yes." I started, but she immediately cut me off. "Please, just tell me the truth, all of it." I hesitated, and just when I was about to tell her, the bell rang, causing everyone to rush off. "Fine then, I promise to tell you everything later, but you have to promise to not make any hasty decisions. Please," I pleaded, earning a sigh and a nod from her. I smiled gratefully before heading towards my geography lesson. Just thinking of ways Brielle might react made me zone out of the lesson, and before I could even realize it, the bell was already ringing, signaling the end of geography. I walked slowly to my next lesson, which happened to be maths. Walking into the classroom, I proceeded to my usual seat, which was in the middle row at the edge. When the teacher got in, everyone got quiet and settled down. "Put all books away, you have a test to write." The room was immediately filled with groans, and I even heard someone behind me calling out, "Jerk." Yeah, I get it. We are all happy," he said as he pulled out a stack of question papers and started handing them out. As soon as I got mine, I started filling out the blank spaces, making sure not to leave any out. I was the first to finish, so I just put my paper aside, looked out the closest window, and started thinking of all the things I could have done to make my life less miserable. Time seemed to be in a hurry since I was already making my way to the cafeteria for lunch. Unfortunately, Brielle was not able to join me since she had failed a pop quiz in history and had to make it up on lunch. I walked over to our usual table and sat it down on my favorite spot, which did not provide me any view of the other students. Whilst I was happily munching on my apple and listening to music with my earphones, 2 figures sat down across me on the table. When I looked up, I was shocked to find Zick and Nathan. I immediately pulled out my earphones whilst looking around just to make sure that I was not hallucinating. What are you two doing?" I asked rather silently, but they still heard me either way. "Eating, obviously," Zick said in a duck kind of tone. "I know what you are doing, but I meant, why are you sitting here? I thought you only sat at the populars table." The last part one said more to myself. "Why, do you own the school? Do you own the tables? I'm sure I can sit anywhere I want," Nathan answered with his eyes glued to his food. "What this idiot means is, Brielle asked me to sit with you as a favor since she was caught up in history. Obviously I couldn't come by myself, so I dragged Nathan too." There was a slight groan from Nathan before Zick corrected himself. "Begged him to come with." Zick let out a grin, which I returned with a genuine smile of my own. Unfortunately, my smile was wiped away when Naomi spoke up from behind me. "Hey guys." She put her bag on the empty bench, and so did the other two. Hey Abby, do you mind if we sit? I was not able to respond for they were already taking their sit next to me. Since the bench could not take more than 3 people, I was forced to move further and further away until I accidentally fell to the floor. They all erupted with laughter whilst I was hissing in pain due to my previous wounds. I did not bother to argue for my spot, so I just took my bag and food and made my way to the door. Whilst I was passing by where Sienna was seated, she stuck out her foot, causing me to fall yet again. When I got up, my food was smeared all over my chest, neck, and half of my face. Everyone was already taking pictures whilst laughing at my state. How embarrassing. I hurriedly got up, took my bag and ran out to the ladies' bathroom. By the time I looked in the mirror, I seemed close to a puffer fish about to explode. Tears had taken hostage on my cheeks as my eyes became swollen and red. My chest was covered with noodles and its yellow soup, my neck was smudged with salad cream whilst my face contained the rest of the salad. The pink blouse which I had on, had turned red from my juice. All in all, I was a huge mess, all thanks to Sienna. I washed away all that which was on my face and neck and wiped off the rest that was on my blouse. When I walked out of the bathroom, the hallway was empty since everyone was in the cafeteria. I walked over to the changing rooms where I took out my sports attire, which consisted of white all-star sneakers, pink socks, a track bottom, a white t-shirt and a track jacket. I quickly changed and put away the dirty clothes in my bag. Phew, there you are. I was worried sick about you. Brielle stated out as she walked towards me and immediately engulfed me in a bear hug. I let out a wince after she unknowingly touched my wounds. She pulled away with a look of confusion. Are you okay? As soon as she asked that, I became a sobbing mess. Hey, you don't have to cry, Pinky. Just tell me. And that is exactly what I did. I told her all that happened with Tyler, Naomi, and all the threats they gave me. The look of pity and disgust was etched up on her face as I told her. Pinky, can you lift up your t-shirt? It was not a request at all, more like a command. I hesitated but ended up showing her my purple blots. Brielle released a gasp at the same time Nathan walked in, not sure why he was even in here. What happened to you? He asked as I quickly pulled down the piece of cloth, but he had already seen it all. I was not able to reply for Brielle had already gotten up and was now facing Nathan. All thanks to you, my best friend is now suffering. Yesterday she was beaten up and now she has bruises to show it. Brielle shouted out in his face. Nathan looked at me with a serious expression. Who helped them? They couldn't have done this without help. Brielle looked at me for confirmation before telling him. Tyler Jones. He raised his hand and threw my forgotten phone to me, then dashed out of the room. Brielle and I looked at each other before she walked over to me and gave me a hug, with caution this time. It was not long before she pulled away after the chime that sounded from her phone. Pinky. Nathan is going to the rugby fields and he is going to beat up Tyler. Come, let's go. She took hold of my arm, which I immediately pulled back. I am not going anywhere near that fight. You know how much I hate violence. My tone was dripping with disgust towards the violent act. Don't be such a baby. Come on. She put a firm grip onto my wrist and pulled me out of the changing rooms. As we were getting closer to the field, we heard loud murmuring until a large crowd came into view. Brielle pulled me through the mass of people until we came to the clearing in the middle. Immediately, I heard Nathan's cold voice. Look, Tyler, I really have got no time for this. I'm just here to give you a warning. His every word was laced with venom. Tyler chuckled, not even looking the least bit intimidated by Nathan's death glare. And what kind of warning is that, little boy? Nathan's hand immediately balled up, making his knuckles turn pale. Just stay away from Abigail. As soon as my name rolled out of his mouth, my eyes widened in shock. I had never known that he actually knew my name. Why? Does the stupid bad boy have a weak spot for the nerd? Everyone was stunned by Tyler's words. No one had ever before thought of challenging Nathan. Zick just stood there with his hands in his pockets and a scowl on his face. Not again. I was close enough to hear him mumble, making me turn to face him. What do you mean again? He didn't even bother looking at me as he answered. There are mainly 3 words that can get Nathan really angry. Being called stupid, little, and a boy. Since Tyler used them all, I really do not see him making it out alive. I turn and face the 2 in the middle. Are you growing on to that, nerd? It just goes to show how you are nothing but a stupid little beau. Tyler did not even get to finish talking, and just like that, Nathan threw a blow at him, making him stagger back whilst clutching his now bleeding nose. Nathan stood there like it was normal to punch someone in the face every once in a while. Tyler pushed away everyone who was trying to help him stand properly. "You're gonna pay for that, you idiot," he said as he threw a punch at Nathan, who was livid but did not take immediate action. Nathan caught his fist with ease, shocking all the onlookers, including myself. He threw a punch of his own which had Tyler falling to the ground. During all this, I kept my hands clutched to my chest, just make sure that my heart would not leap out. I could literally feel the look of horror painted on my face. No matter how much I wanted to look or walk away, I just couldn't. It felt like my feet were glued to the ground. Nathan threw blow after blow at Tyler without even breaking a sweat. Somehow he looked up and our eyes made contact, causing him to stop mid-punch. Neither of us broke the contact until I saw Tyler aiming for Nathan's face from underneath him. It took me a while to register that Tyler had landed a blow on Nathan's jaw, which only caused a mere slit at the corner of his bottom lip. I was already trembling with fear, for I had never witnessed such acts of violence. Nathan returned to his posture of being the attacker. Just as Nathan threw a punch at Tyler's ribs, the principal showed up. "Enough!" Her shout was enough to stop the commotion as everyone made a pathway for her to the middle. Zick was now standing beside Nathan, both with void expressions. "Not you again," she mumbled out as she faced Nathan. "Both of you to my office, and the rest go back to your classes." The crowd immediately dispersed as she started walking back to her office with Nathan and Tyler on her tail. I stared at Nathan's retreating posture before Brielle pulled me towards the opposite direction. English seemed lonely and quiet, even though the room was filled with students talking and working on their assignments. Nathan had not returned from the principal's office, even although Zick had said that they had been let off with a last warning. After what felt like eternity, the bell rang. I got all my things in my locker and ran towards the parking lot to look for Zick. When I finally spotted him, he was amongst a group of other boys chatting away. I walked up to him and tapped his shoulder, making him look at me with a genuine smile etched up on his face that I just could not return. "Hey, what's up?" he said as he popped the P at the end. "Can I talk to you?" I trailed off as I looked at the intruding eyes and ears of the other boys that were listening in. "In private?" We excused ourselves and moved a bit further away from any listeners. "Can you please tell me where Nathan went?" Immediately his smile died down into a frown. "Why do you want to know?" he said as though not wanting me to know. "I really have to speak to him. I know that he fought with Tyler because of me, so I need to thank him. I also know that you know where he is. So please, will you tell me?" I said as I gave him an innocent face and the puppy eyes. He quickly looked away but peeked at me anyway, making him sigh out heavily and finally giving in. I started jumping up and down, mentally of course, as he jotted down an address in my phone. After uploading the address to Google Maps, I quickly speed away. About 15 minutes later, I pull up at an abandoned warehouse which looked like it had seen better days and could collapse at any minute. I double-checked the address and sure enough it was the place. What shocked me was the fact that there were more than 50 cars parked outside and some cheering could be heard coming from the warehouse. A thought of turning back crossed my mind, but then I remembered that there was surely no harm in looking. Hence I proceeded to the half-open large door. As soon as I stepped foot into the warehouse, I was bombarded with a heavy stench of different types of alcohols mixed with sweat and cheap perfumes. The cheering was at full blast as everyone was faced towards the center where a wrestling ring stood with two buff men strangling each other. Just then one of the men got the upper hand and knocked the other out, making people go crazy cheering for him. I quickly turned away as they were removing the unconscious fighter from the ring. I placed both my hands over my ears in order to block out all possible sounds of violence. Surely this was just a trick that Zick played on me so that I would stop nagging him. I said to myself, just so I could calm my ragging heart from bursting out. He is so going to regret doing that. I dropped my arms just in time to hear the speaker calling out the next fighter. "He might be handsome, but don't let the looks fool you. He can be a wild beast and knock you out. He hasn't lost a match ever since he stepped foot in this ring. Welcome to the ring, the young beast, Callahan." I was already walking out but immediately halted in my steps as I racked my brain for the face that could fit with the familiar name. I turned around and was shocked by the person that walked into the ring, bouncing back and forth. My eyes were wide open and my jaw hung low. Daniel O'Brien was a fighter. My feet were officially glued to the ground and my eyes were stuck on the guy bouncing around in the ring. Somehow his eyes managed to make contact with my own and shock clearly invaded his expression. They call out his opponent, but he did not pay the slightest bit of attention, for his eyes were still staring me down. I looked at the person he was going to be fighting, and just by his looks, I felt my heartbeat quickening, my palms becoming sweaty, and I swear I could no longer breathe. The man was taller than Nathan, he was all muscles and looked like he would kill me with one punch. Nathan's gaze finally drifted off as the speaker announced the beginning of the fight. My hands immediately covered my ears just as the buff guy swung at Nathan, but fortunately he only hit air. I looked away, for my eyes were already tearing up. After a few minutes' time I lifted my head only to find the buff guy in a headlock. He managed to move away from Nathan after giving him a jab to his lungs. He seemed out of breath and tired, whereas Nathan still looked fresh and relaxed. Just as the guy was about to make a move, Nathan stepped forward and gave him a roundhouse kick, successfully knocking out. A squeak leaves my mouth as the man collided with the ground, even though the sound was drowned by the sea of cheers from the crowd. My brows scrunched together as I looked at Nathan, who already seemed to be staring at me. I quickly turned and finally walked out, wanting to erase each and every memory attached to that warehouse. Just a few feet away from my car, I felt a grip on my forearm and turned to face the culprit. The fighter himself faced me, with a pair of shorts that he had been fighting with only. He did not allow me to pull back as he was now dragging me towards the warehouse, but only that this time we were heading towards the back. I kept yelling at him to let go, but my shouts only fell on deaf ears. We passed through a small door which led to a couple more rooms that we obviously passed. He dragged me to the far end of the dimly lit hallway where only a single door stood. As soon as the door was opened, he pushed me inside and stood between me and my only way of escaping. He folded his hands over his chest whilst looking at me in a scrutinizing way. I dashed for the door, but he caught me with ease, making me land on his chest before pushing me back to my previous position. "What are you doing here?" His tone was serious and very sharp, sending a shiver down my spine. I folded my arms, imitating his posture, then looked away. "I'm being serious here." "Why are you here?" I could tell that he was not one to be patient for long, but my defiance took the best of me and I refused to speak. "Listen, Bennett, I really have no time for games, so just speak already." Yet again, I remained mute. Suddenly I was pushed back into an armchair. Nathan leaned in with both hands on either side of me. "You better tell me before I end up doing something to your pretty face." I knew he was bluffing, but his death glare got to me. A frown made its way onto my face as I responded. "You actually think that I will tell you anything after you literally manhandled then threatened me?" "I'm sorry, but I do not think that's happening," I said in a rather harsh tone. What surprises me is hearing him let out a chuckle. "I really do not get why you tend to act courageous when around me, but you become pale just by seeing Naomi and her two companions." His statement surely had me wondering. "Surely you don't have nails that are longer than your teeth or heels that can pierce through my skin," I say with such confidence it literally left me shocked. He pulled back and walked over the mini fridge in the corner. I finally take a moment to observe my surroundings. The room was so bright even though it had a single light. There were a couple of chairs, a sofa, punching bag in one corner and a mini fridge in another, and a full-length mirror behind me. There was also another door which I couldn't even guess led to where exactly. I looked back at Nathan and see him holding a half-filled water bottle. "Zick told me," I stated without even knowing it. "What?" he asked as he turned to face me. "I begged him to tell me where you went since you were not in class after being dismissed by the principal. He didn't want to, but I pleaded anyway, and that's when he gave me an address." I trailed off as I started playing with my fingers, finding them interesting for some unknown reason. I wanted to thank you for defending me. You fought with Tyler just so he would stay away from me." "Thank you," I said out as the last part came out more like a whisper. "That's all you wanted to say? Couldn't you just wait at least until tomorrow? Did you really have to come here? What if you had gotten hurt, huh? There are a lot of nasty people around here. You could have gotten hurt. You really shouldn't have come here. I mean, did you actually think you could just waltz in here?" I cut him off before he could get any further with his ranting and poured out the rage that I had bottled up. "Well then, none of this would have happened if you hadn't fought with Tyler. None of this would have happened if you hadn't left the schoolyard." I wasn't able to go any further with the assignment apart from the questions that I came up with, and you did not help at all. I really wouldn't have asked about your whereabouts if it weren't for the fact that you defended me, and I just had to show some gratitude. So excuse me, 'cause I didn't know that acts of gratitude are now being considered as a crime. I yelled out as I felt my face burning up already. Without allowing him any chance to respond, I head towards the door and stomp out. On my way out I bump into a nasty-looking man who seemed to be in his late 20s. From the look he gave me and the sly grin, I could tell that the man had no soul within him. "Hello there, Bella. Where you going?" he said as he gripped onto my arm. I immediately pushed his hand away. "Don't you dare touch me," I said harshly before walking away, but I still heard his follow-up words. "Feisty, I like that one." The man snickered right as he proceeded to walk into Nathan's room rather aggressively. As soon as my 2-pack hit the car seat, I was already turning the keys and sped away from the shady warehouse. I knew better not to judge at first sight, but that man's look screamed danger and power. He almost seemed like he had a screw loose somewhere inside that skull of his. When I got back home I was not surprised to see neither of my parents' cars in the garage. Letting out a long sigh, I knew that I was finally in my comfort zone, our house. I took out the aforesaid meal and heated it up in the microwave. Rex was gingerly jumping around my feet as I poured him his own meal into the empty bowl. After having my meal, I took my well-deserved bath, then made myself comfortable in my cozy bed. I was not yet feeling sleepy, so I took the time to observe my ceiling whilst thinking of my day. If Nathan was not pleased with seeing me at the warehouse or finding out that he was a fighter, then he obviously would not want me to tell a single soul. I could clearly tell that the warehouse with which he was fighting in was probably condemned, hence making the fights even more illegal. Thinking of all this made me smile, yet at the same time frown. I was now able to blackmail him into doing the assignment with me. But on the other hand, blackmailing a person is not exactly a good thing to do. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep whilst thinking of how I was going to get an A on my assignment. Waking up to a cool breeze was weird, but what was actually strange was seeing a bouquet of flowers on my bedside table. I immediately sat up and stared at the red roses decorating my room. With confusion roaming my mind, I reached out for the card that was amongst the roses. It was written in a cursive black ink and it read, "I hope you won't be too feisty about this too. P.S. Next time get your dog under control or else. Tony Carrot." I immediately jumped out of the bed and searched around my room. When I found no one lingering around, I went ahead to search the other rooms, but they were all vacant. I ran back to my room and scanned the letter, not recognizing the writing nor the name. Picking up the bunch of flowers, I stored them in the closet for the meantime and placed the card in my backpack pocket. I knew for sure that it could not have been either one of my parents, and to sum up the confusion, Tony was not a familiar name for either one of my relatives or friends. I pushed the thought out of my mind and proceeded to prepare for another day at my personal torture center school. After coming out of the bathroom, I kept peeking at every corner of the house just to make sure that I was alone, besides Rex, of course. I even had to sneak around to get to my car. If someone was surely watching me, then I was sure that I looked pathetic at the moment, for every second had me jumping out of my skin. I got to school a bit early, but that did not seem to bother me the slightest bit. But weirdly enough, the school made me feel like I was getting into my safe haven for some reason. Cautiously, I walked to my locker whilst making sure that no one was stalking me. However, what came next had my soul jumping from my body. "Hey Pinky," the greeting was so sudden it had me jumping off the ground, about 5 inches high, causing me to bump my head onto my open locker. "Ah!" I screamed out as I rubbed the top of my head with my left hand whilst the other was over my chest, trying to calm down my raging heart. "Bree, don't you ever do that ever again," I reprimanded whilst putting more emphasis on ever. She immediately gave me a concerned look. "Why are you so jumpy today? Did Naomi do something to you again?" Her words were laced with anger at the mention of Naomi. "No. I mean, not this time, trust me. It's just that I woke up today with roses and a note on my bedside." The note said it came from a guy named Tony. I was quick to cover my ears and cringe as Bree squealed out loud enough to put a drowning pig to shame. "Oh my gosh. Pinky, you have an admirer." Rolling my eyes, I proceeded to grab all my necessities from my locker whilst Bree kept on fantasizing about how cute he would be. Ignoring her enthusiast ranting, we made our way towards our first classes. I was going for science whilst she was heading to the mathematics classroom, but luckily enough the classes were close to each other, so we used the same route. It was not long before we were standing outside the maths classroom, and unfortunately Bree was still ranting non-stop about the mystery Tony. Okay, Bree. I think that is enough and you should be getting into your class. Besides, I thought you had a crush on Zick instead of Tony." Thankfully her ranting came to an end and a deep blush was now painted on her cheeks. I guess you are right. I have to go, see you soon. I plastered a smile and waved her off as I made my way to class. Gratefully, no one was following me or acknowledging my presence. Finally, the last period before lunch and I was sitting in English class. There was an energetic buzz all around the room as everyone was chatting with their partners, some were even reviewing their work with the teacher, except me. You guessed it, he was not here again. Nathan was late for class, like always, making me lag behind even further since we have not even started yet. Christian, a boy who sat 2 seats in front of me, suddenly rose up his hand. Yes, Chris, you have a question? The room quietened down considerably as everyone stared between him and Mrs. Roberts. Yes, actually. I do not really get the reason for this assignment. She flashed him a smile before responding. Actually, it has come to my attention that most of my students are failing their registers concerning matter, attitude, feelings, and others. Though it is mainly due to your own attitude. Within your pairs there is one who is slightly better, hence helping your other partner. She paused as the door swung open, revealing Nathan. He does not apologize and proceeds to his seat next to me. For example, Nathan is always late for my class, meaning that punctuality is definitely not part-time for his matter. That was only an example, hence I will leave the rest to you. All of you need to use as many registers as possible, so there is no limit. She ends with a smile, then turned back to her work on her desk. I stayed silent for a moment before turning to face Nathan. You do know that we have about 2 weeks remaining to complete the assignment, right? I stared at him waiting for a response, but only see him looking out the window. The assignment is not all about you asking me questions. You cannot rely on what I say, you never know, cause I just might lie to you. Realization finally dawned on me, knowing that I was not thinking when I made the ridiculous questions. I was thinking that maybe we could arrange some days to do what the other likes, then maybe we can get to know each other. His eyes never wavered from the rugby field on the other side of the window. His expressions we also were hidden well, making sure not to let any emotion slip. I thought I told you to stop your habit of staring. Yet again he did not avert his gaze, but I took in a breath as I looked away from him. What you saw yesterday, do not mention it to anyone else. At last, he finally turned his head to face me as I nodded slightly. He got up, grabbing everyone's attention at the same time the bell rang, which always left me wondering how he knew the exact second the bell would ring. I quickly ran after him and managed to stop him just outside of the classroom. Sorry, I just wanted to ask when it is that we can do something together for our assignment, of course. He looked rather bored by our conversation, but he answered anyway. Definitely not today, I have rugby practice. So maybe tomorrow afternoon. I only nodded my head and left him to finish off what he was about to say. So how about you give me your number and I will text you the time and place. Taking out my phone, I handed it to him as he gave me his. Just as I saved my number in his phone, I spot Tyler coming towards us. Oh look, it's the lovebirds. What are you up to now? Taking your relationship to the next level? I could see Nathan's jaw harden as Tyler approached. Can you not just mind your own business? Just by the tone Nathan used I got a shiver down my spine, but it did not seem to sway Tyler. At first I thought of him as intimidating, but after forcing me into an empty classroom causing my injuries, I just felt irritated and annoyed to see him. This is my business, cause I am sure everyone would want to know who the best rugby player is dating. He finished off with a sick smile on his face. Can't you take a break? Go find someone else to bother, I'm sure that Gina would be fit for that. She would be more than willing to entertain your presence. My newfound confidence left me utterly shocked. Oh, believe me, you fit my needs perfectly. As soon as he said that, my hand shot up and my palm connected with his cheek. Anger raged within his eyes and immediately he lunged forward to hit me back. Thankfully Nathan reacted just in time and his fist collided with Tyler's jaw. He fell onto the floor with his palm firmly on his throbbing jaw. As though summoned, the principal popped up out of thin air with a glare directed to Nathan and I. Could this get any worse? I thought as my heart rate shot up. I really should have known not to ask myself, could this get any worse? I mean, of course it could. That look on the principal's face should have tipped me off, and besides I should have known better. Mr. Callahan and Miss Bennett, what do you think you are doing? This is a school, not some boxing ring. The principal said as she helped Tyler onto his feet. I expected a lot from you, Miss Bennett. Since you do not know any better than I thought you would and you do not have any more lessons, you might as well make your way to detention. But I have got you. Nathan was quickly cut off before he could finish, effectively silencing him. You should have thought your actions through. Now the both of you move along, you have got detention to attend. She said and proceeded to help Tyler to the first aider. I think that is what she was doing. The thought of attending detention sent chills down my back, and I was sure Nathan could tell, probably by the look of horror on my face, which he gladly returned with a smile of his own. Relax, it's going to be okay. Detention is not all that bad. I was actually shocked that he was in such a joking mood. I continued to my locker without a single word out of my mouth. This was going to be my very first detention ever. Due to the detention, I was going to miss my early retreat home, and Nathan was going to miss his rugby practice. For someone who plays rugby and does street fighting, I was pretty amazed that his body is not like that of a giant's with all his strength and speed. I finally make it to detention, but I just could not push myself to open the door. After about 3 minutes of moving up and down the door and hesitating to turn the handle, I finally stick my feet to the ground in front of the said door. Step 1 done. However, the hardest part was step 2, putting my hand on the door handle and pushing it down to open the door. With a shaking hand, I placed my palm on the handle, got a firm grip, and finally pushed it down. Taking a deep breath, I push open the door slowly. I walked in only to find the teacher in charge fast asleep. There were a bunch of other students whom I could see was not their first time in detention. They were about 15 altogether, plus me, of course. I was shocked upon seeing Tyler in the room too. He must have done something bad earlier in the day. Tyler was seated at the back conversing with another boy on his right. Nathan was in the middle of the room with no one sitting anywhere close to him, meaning the 4 desks around him were empty. He was leaning into his chair, his hands crossed over his chest, and his eyes were monitoring my every move, much like most of the other students in the room. As soon as Tyler saw me, he waved me over with an overly sweet smile but a mischievous glint in his eyes. At the same moment, Nathan threw me a glare that I could not quite understand, but guessed he probably did not want me sitting close to Tyler. Come over here, Bennett, I do not bite. His tone was determined, and the look he now had on was one which could not take no for an answer. Hesitantly, I started making my way towards the back, but came to a stop when I was just about to pass by where Nathan was. His hand was on my wrist, but he was facing the front, looking at nothing in particular. Sit. His order came out firm with more authority than Tyler's, completely leaving no room for arguments. I looked at Tyler, who gave me an angry glare, then back at Nathan, who was not even looking at me, but nonetheless his grip on my wrist did not falter. Slowly, I took my sit next to Nathan, making sure not to look back at Tyler. Nathan's hand releases my own and he shoves it into his pocket. An awkward silence settled around us, and after a few seconds more I got tired of it and thought of making small talk with the boy sitting next to me. So, what's with him? I asked, pointing to the sleeping teacher. Just got divorced. He answered bluntly. And you know this how? He shrugged before responding. Guy talks about his life a lot, and I spend most of my time in detention. You can do whatever you like, and he does not even care as long as it is within this room. I only nodded and stared at the unconscious man at the front of the class. Turns out detention was not that bad once you got Nathan talking. We made a lot of jokes and laughed more than I had in the week alone. He was actually great for a detention buddy and seemed to be a good friend too, that is if he allows you through his hard exterior. I made it through detention just fine with my partner in crime, and I still got home before both my parents got there. I made dinner, and after eating I went over to my room. What threw me off as I entered my room was finding yet another gift with a note along with it. Unlike the last time, there was a box of chocolates, and not just any kind, it was Lindt, which were my favorite. The note read, "The finest chocolates for the finest lady. Hope you didn't think of me too much today, feisty. Tony Carrot." I immediately took the box of chocolates outside, where I threw it in the bin. This was getting really creepy. Neither did I know the person stalking me nor the reason for him to do so. I ran back inside and threw the note into my bag where the other one was. I really need to start investigating on the person doing this and that handwriting. I thought as I quickly jumped into bed, trying to get the day over with. Not long after switching off my light, I could feel my eyelids drooping before finally succumbing to the darkness. I woke up to the sound of a vacuum cleaner moving around downstairs and lazily got out of bed in order to see who it was. Dressed in a white sundress was my mother cleaning the house. "Mom." I called out, but she could not hear me over the noise coming from the vacuum cleaner. "Mom," I tried again and got the same result as before. "Mother." I screamed out and finally got the reaction I wanted as she came to a stop and turned off the machine. "Morning, Abigail, what are you doing up so early?" she asked with a sweet smile etched up on her face. "Well, if it were not for your noisy vacuum, then maybe I would still be asleep." "I am sorry for waking you up, dear." Her tone was so sincere and apologetic that I could not find it in me to even be mad at her. "It is all right. Why are you even doing chores? Are you not going to work today?" I leaned further into the wall by the stairway as I stared at her still standing by the vacuum. "Not really, I got a day off and we can spend it doing whatever you want," she said out rather excitedly. "I would love to, we can watch our all-time favorite, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air." I spoke out enthusiastically until I remembered that I had other plans. "Oh wait, I can't. I'm sorry Mom, I just remembered that I have to meet up with my English partner for an assignment due in 2 weeks now." Her smile visibly deflated a little. 2 weeks sure sounds like a lot of time for an assignment. Your teacher sure must be a lazy one. But either way, good luck on your assignment, she said before turning the vacuum back on and continuing with her cleaning. I made my way back to my room feeling guilty for turning down our mother-daughter time, which seemed to be a rare thing these days. As I entered my room, I found my phone vibrating on my desk. I quickly picked it up and answered it before it became a missed call. "Hello?" I spoke out into the receiver, not knowing who it was since I had forgotten to check the caller ID. "Be ready in an hour. I am picking you up." With that, he ended the call. I immediately knew that with the lack of basic and proper manners, the voice clearly belonged to Nathan. Not even a greeting or farewell. What a gentleman. I could already tell which one of us needed this assignment more. But why did this meetup almost seem like a duh? I immediately crossed out those thoughts, and for good measure I even shook my head in an attempt to get them out of my brain. I walked up to my closet and just looked at my clothes without a single idea of what I was going to wear. With a final huff, I rang up the only person who could help me. The phone rang for a while, and just when I thought the ringing was going to stop, she picked up. "It's a Saturday morning, so why must you wake me up this early?" Her groggy voice came through the speaker, indicating that I had just woken her up from her sleep. "It's basically 9:45 a.m., so you should have been up a long time ago." If she were here right now, I am sure I would have been under her scrutinizing glare. "What time did you wake up?" I was silent for a little bit, which was a good enough answer for her. "Exactly, get to the point, I want to go back to sleep." Bree's tone was full of irritation, seeing as I had just done to her what Mom had done to me a few minutes ago. "I am meeting up with Nathan in a bit. I do not know what kind of place we are going, and I do not know what to wear." Somehow to my ears, it still sounded like a duh. "Is it a date?" "No," I let out with some hesitation. "Then it does not matter what you wear." With that, she cut the call, leaving me to wonder of the kind of ill-mannered people around me. After a while of searching, I finally came up with a white long-sleeved top, a light-washed denim jean, and a pair of black Converse sneakers for comfort. I even added a pink varsity jacket since my outfit was lacking some pink, and a simple necklace. I took a quick shower and got ready with 15 minutes left for me to spare. Rex, who had just recently woken up, was jumping about at my feet. Picking him up, I made my way to the kitchen where Mom had already placed a bowl full of dog food for Rex. I placed him on the floor and he immediately dashed for his food, slipping twice onto his face along the way. I laughed at the cuteness before making my own breakfast and joined my mom on the sofa, who was laughing at Will Smith's theatrics on TV. A few laughs later, there was a sound of an engine pulling up outside, followed by a horn. "I guess that's him." "All right then, be careful," she said, followed by a kiss on the forehead. Putting my plate away and grabbing my phone, I opened the door and immediately spotted the familiar BMW. Shock would be an understatement for how I felt when Nathan pulled up at a fairground. I had last visited such a place when I was still so young. "Why are we here?" I was surprised to find Nathan already looking at me with a smile when I faced him. "I just thought that it would be fun to let loose whilst learning more about each other. Unless, of course, if you want me to take you to my training sessions." Without waiting for my reply, Nathan moves out of the car, heading towards the entrance, leaving me to jog after him. "Not a date," she said. The sassy voice in my head appeared, making me subconsciously roll my eyes. I mean, I know Nathan has better things to do and I have no feelings for him. "Yeah, that's it." "Okay, where shall we go to first?" Nathan asked as he looked around after we had just bought a few tickets. I eyed up a stand close by, with pink and white teddy bears that one would win after scoring 5 baskets in the basketball hoop attached to the back wall inside the little stand. A huge smile played on my face as I looked back at Nathan, who was already eyeing up the stand with disgust. "Oh no, I am not winning that thing for you," he said in a grumpy tone. "Please, pretty please. After all, you are the one who said that we should let loose." Please Nate." He immediately cringed at the sound of the familiar nickname Naomi always calls him by. "If I say yes, will you shut up?" I nodded excitedly as he sighed and gave up. "I feel like I am going to regret this." I did not think I was meant to hear that, but it still made my smile brighten. I pulled him towards the stand where he paid $1 in order for him to play. Surprisingly, he got all 5 baskets in without missing a single one. He looked at me as though he could literally be anywhere else besides here. "Well, choose a bear." I was jumping at the balls of my feet, all giddy as I pointed at the white bear. "Thank you so much," I squealed out to Nathan whilst clutching onto my bear tightly. "What, a white bear? I thought you only went for pink," he said out with a lopsided grin. I rolled my eyes as we started moving towards other stands. We had only moved a little bit further when Nathan pulled me towards a big blue tent with laser tag written in bright neon green. We were given the equipment before being guided to a dark room where the other players were suiting up. It was not that dark since there were some dimmed lights, but due to my fear of darkness, there was clearly no difference at all. I handed my bear to the man by the door and suited up as well, copying how Nathan was doing it. "Looks like I am going to take you down today," Nathan whispered into my ear from beside me. "Are we not supposed to be a team? I mean, you cannot just leave me wandering alone in the dark." He chuckled at my expense. "Is little Abigail afraid of the dark? And besides, what's wrong with a team of one? It's more like a team of fun." He joked as he let out the last part in a girly squeal. I could already picture him with a smirk before he disappeared somewhere in the dark room. With trembling legs, I made my way into the battlefield where I found a wooden stack of boxes and hidden behind them, taking constant peeks. There was a countdown from 10 before a buzzer went off signaling the beginning of the game. Immediately people started rushing about, taking each other out. Each time a laser hit its target, there would be a red blob like blood on the jacket and the player would have to leave the room. Due to the many boxes stacked up around the room, I was able to stay away from sight. There had been many close encounters where some of the players would move around my hiding spot and I had to make a quick getaway without them seeing me. I was amazed at how I was able to stay alive for such a long time. Another player slowly passed by my hiding spot, which had me clutching my gun to my chest for dear life. As soon as they were out of sight, I let out a silent breath of relief. That was too close. "Keep it up." The little voice in my head cheered me on, but I could barely hear it due to the blood pumping loudly in my ears. The game went on for a while before a speaker announced that there were only 3 players left. I did not even know if Nathan had been shot or not. Somehow I felt as though I were Katniss Everdeen. All that was left was a hologram showing everyone who was out of the game. "Oh Abby, come out wherever you are." I heard him coo from not far away, followed by a light chuckle. He was having a hell lot of fun from this than I was. At the same moment I heard some movement coming from the other side of the boxes, making my heartbeat shoot up. As he got closer to the boxes, I immediately popped up from my crouched position, pulled the trigger and released 5 shots at once, blindly might I add. He let out a grumble followed by a few profanities, and only then did I open my eyes upon realizing that the voice did not belong to Nathan. I came face with a boy about my age staring at me, showing his irritation. His jacket was completely colored red. "Wrong person, sweetheart." My breath hitched in my throat as I turned around and saw Nathan's outline. Without wasting another second, he pulled the trigger and I screamed out as I felt my jacket buzzing, indicating my death and Nathan as the last man standing. Nathan burst into laughter at my reaction, causing me to get irritated, so I turned around and stomped out of the room. I removed the suit and grabbed my bear from the man by the door, letting out a thank you before leaving the tent without checking to see if Nathan was following behind. When he caught up with me, he threw his hand around my shoulder, surprising me with his happy mood. "Lighten up, Abigail, it was just a game." I huffed out and rolled my eyes. "A game which you killed me in without so much as hesitating." He let out a chuckle as he pulled me towards a cotton candy stand where he bought one for me. "Happy now?" I shook my head before pulling out a handful and stuffing it on his face. "Now I am," I said before erupting in laughter. I quickly took out my phone and captured the moment before he got a chance to wipe his face clean. We moved on to the roller coaster, Ferris wheel, and a bunch of other games and rides. Nathan was not his usual grumpy, emotionless self but happy and free. We had a lot of fun, mostly Nathan did since he never missed a chance to tease me. It was getting late when we decided to head back. On our way back to the car, Nathan got a call and excused himself in order to answer it. I was waiting for Nathan to return when a group of 5 men approached me. Shock was an understatement at this moment as I saw a familiar face leading the group. "We meet again, Feisty." A scowl etched up on my face at the familiar nickname, and yet I could not quite put a finger on something that I was missing. "What do you want?" I asked with a bit of anger, for he was already ruining my fun day. Well, at the moment I just thought that since we were not able to meet long enough for introductions, we might as well start there. I was already looking around for Nathan whilst trying to avoid the man's dirty gaze. "I am Tony, Antonio Diaz." He put more emphasis on Tony as it finally clicked in my head where I had heard that name as I looked at him in horror. Oh no. Oh no. This could not be real. My mystery had just unveiled itself. My so-called admirer was this dangerous-looking man. "And a little birdie told me that your name is Abigail Bennett. You are the only child of Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. Lawyers, by the way." He finished off with a triumphant smile. I was already feeling lightheaded, and at the moment death seemed to be quite appealing. From the corner of my eye I spotted Nathan walking back looking all worried, which I assumed was due to the call he had just answered. His features however changed into a hard expression in a snap when he spotted the people standing in front of me. "What are you doing here?" He spat out with a venomous tone when he finally approached me and pulled me slightly behind him. "Well, if it ain't Nathan Callahan. Fancy meeting you here. I just wanted to ask Abigail here if she got the roses and chocolates I sent her." My heart skipped yet again at the realization of him stepping into my room. Nathan's jaw ticked from the corner of my eye, but he did not offer a response before walking away with his hand still holding onto mine. After making sure that I was properly seated in the car, he sped off without saying anything. He never even informed me where we were heading and why in such a hurry. I was actually scared to ask him where we were going since his face was void of any emotions, only his jaw clenched every once in a while. Even his knuckles were turning white from the way he was gripping the steering wheel. We finally came to a stop at the city hospital, and I was quite confused, for I was sure Nathan did not get any injury during the day. Maybe he got it when he left to answer the call. He did not waste any more time as he jumped out of the car, slammed the door and ran towards the entrance, with me right on his heels. He did not even stop by the reception but zoomed right past, heading for the stairs. After a couple flights of stairs, some wheezing and coughing mainly on my part, we finally came to a room filled with doctors, some running about. Nathan tried to get in but was immediately taken out by one of the doctors. "What's wrong with her? Is she going to be fine? Tell me something." He yelled out in frustration, but all that he was told was to stay out. Nathan slumped onto one of the chairs outside the room, almost at the verge of tears. I did not know what to do. Do boys also do hugs and cuddles? How about some ice cream? I ended up sitting next to him with my hand caressing his back. He looked up at me before engulfing me in an embrace. "I suppose boys do hugs and cuddles too." He was not sobbing, and neither did he let out any tears. We were like that for a few more minutes, which helped in calming him down since he was more relaxed than before. A doctor finally walked out of the room and stood in front of us. "Excuse me, son, you can finally see her. She is fine now and out of danger." Nathan got to his feet and entered the room in a rush. "Thank you," I said to the doctor, which he responded to by nodding his head slightly with a smile as he turned to walk away. Entering inside, I saw him sitting beside a woman holding her hand. She was looking quite pale. I knew where I was not needed, hence I made a move to leave, but Nathan reached out for my hand, stopping me in place. "Please stay." Seeing him so vulnerable somehow made me want to cry. But instead I simply walked over to him and he patted the seat next to him. I looked at him, then to the unconscious woman and back at him, contemplating whether I should sit or not. Hesitantly, I sat down and looked at the woman who looked a lot like Nathan. "Abigail, I would like you to meet my mother, Gabriella Callahan." He was looking at his mother as he said with a sad smile. This time a tear did slip out, but I was quick to wipe it away. After a while of just sitting beside Nathan and his mother, a nurse walked in notifying us that visiting hours were almost over. I took the chance to walk out of the room in order to give Nathan some alone time with his mother. I sat on a bench outside the hospital entrance and breathed in the fresh air. It was not hard to see that Nathan was in pain just by seeing his mother in such a state. I snapped out of my thoughts when I saw Nathan walking towards me and proceeded to sit on the bench right beside me. I looked at him as he started ahead before I settled to looking at the now orange sky, signifying that the sun had set already. There was some silence between us before he finally talked. She was in a car accident. My father had left us and she didn't take the news too well. She ran out of the house with a bottle of alcohol in hand. A few hours later I got the call that my mother was in an accident and she was in a critical state. My father never picked up his phone. I tried so many times to contact him but the calls never went through. I was only 15 when it all happened. I was desperate to find money for her treatment since my father emptied all her savings. So I ended up with the wrong crew, and that is how my fighting career started, only so that I could save my mother. He took a moment to lick his lips before letting out a laugh which had no trace of humor. And to think the last thing my sick father said to me was that I was nothing more than a stupid little boy. A mistake in fact. His tone grew angrier towards the end. A tear fell down his left eye and he angrily wiped it away. I do not know why, but I felt like giving him a hug to comfort him, and that is exactly what I did. I wrapped my hands around his neck and he immediately responded with wrapping his own around my waist whilst resting his head on my shoulder. We pulled away from each other a while later and fell into another wave of silence. Wait, why did you have to pay the bills yourself? Don't you have any relative who can help? I had not realized I had thought that out loud until he responded. I have never known my relatives from either side. My mother never made a move to introduce me, so I do not have any knowledge of them. I nodded to myself and silently cursed my curiosity. He suddenly turned to face me and I did the same. How and when did you meet Tony? As he asked this he no longer looked vulnerable, rather he seemed genuinely concerned. Well, the day that I saw you fighting. You took me to your room and I bumped into him as I was leaving. I looked down at my intertwined hands on my lap whilst unconsciously sucking on my bottom lip. What did he mean by if you got him roses and chocolates? A deep scowl was etched onto his face as he focused on my face, which made me even more uncomfortable. Actually, the following morning after I bumped into him, I woke up to a bouquet of red roses and a creepy note. And he also sent some chocolates and another note yesterday. Do you two not get along? Immediately, I could see his eyes fill up with rage, which was a great contrast to his calm demeanor. Why didn't you tell me about it, or to at least report the break-in to the police? He completely avoided my question. It almost felt like I was being reprimanded, which to some extent got me angry. Well, I am sorry that the little information of me having a stalker slipped out of my mind. I guess I got too distracted by our daily talks to tell you all about Tony. How was I to know that he was a real threat, and besides I told Brielle about it and we just thought it was some weird admirer. I snapped at him, not in a high voice, but it was not exactly low either. There is no need to be sarcastic about it. But if he sends anything else, then tell me immediately. I calmed myself down before nodding. Come, let's go. I wouldn't want to keep you out for too long. With that he got up and made his way to the car with me just behind him. The drive home was quiet except for the background music that was playing on the radio. In no time Nathan was already parking and I was home. Hey, the next time that we meet, can you give me the notes that Tony gave you? He turned in his seat and looked at me. Sure. Thank you for driving me and everything else, but mostly the bear. I said as I snuggled into my teddy bear that was half my height. He offered a nod and a smile in return. When I got inside the house, Mom was already preparing dinner, and after putting my bear away safely in my room, I helped her out. Turns out Dad came back home early and we ended up spending the rest of the night watching comedy. Mom was snuggled up next to Dad whilst Rex was curled up on my lap. A little while later I got up and went to my room after bidding both my parents a good night. After changing into my sleepwear, a short and a baggy t-shirt, I sat up on my bed thinking over all the things that had happened during the day. I had only realized it then that Nathan had told me his life story and shown me his vulnerable side. Did he actually trust me enough, or did it happen by mistake? Maybe it was an in the moment kind of thing. Either way, it really pained me to know of the things that he had to go through all on his own. If he had started fighting just so he could gain some money for his mother's medication, then it also meant that he was paying his tuition by himself too. He was forced to be a grown-up at such an age, making him miss out on some teenage experiences. Finally calling it a night, I moved into my blankets and let the darkness carry me into dreamland. I woke up to Rex licking my face and whimpering, which meant that he was hungry. Checking the time only to see that it was exactly 7 in the morning, I grabbed my phone and walked downstairs to the kitchen, then proceeded to serve Rex some of his food. Mom and Dad were already gone since the firm was a lot demanding even on a Sunday, leaving me with Rex alone. I went through my phone and found 5 missed calls and a message all from Nathan. The message read, "I can't meet up with you. I am going to be busy the whole day." I knew that his so-called busy meant he would probably be at the warehouse or hospital. However, I still suspected that there were more chances of him being at the warehouse than the hospital. How I knew that exactly is beyond me. Pushing the thought at the back of my mind, I went on to prepare breakfast for myself. It was almost noon and I was seated on the couch flipping through different channels but not finding one to satisfy my boredom. I could tell that I was not the only one suffering from boredom, for Rex was lying unconscious on my lap letting out some faint snoring. I had done every single chore in the house but still nothing helped, and I had even done all of my homework a long time back. I wanted to visit Brielle, but she said that she was out with Zick, who was helping her with some school work. She of course considered it to be a date. I scrolled through my phone until I came to a stop at a familiar contact. Oddly enough, I felt like paying someone a visit no matter the excuse stated earlier. Taking a quick shower, I changed into a white tank top, a gray jogger and a pair of pink Puma sneakers. Walking up to my car with Rex hot on my heels, we got in and made off to the one place I knew could take away my boredom. On my way out, I had grabbed the notes Tony had sent me, to use as an excuse for visiting him. I took out the roses in my closet, which I had forgotten about, and threw them into the bin outside. They were really nice, too bad they were already dying without the sunlight. Thankfully the parking lot was empty except for the familiar dark and shiny BMW, making me happy inside for guessing his perfect location. Taking Rex into my arms, I made my way towards the warehouse, taking extra care that he did not bark and alert him of our presence. Nearing the warehouse, I could hear the sounds of someone training. I could tell by the heavy punches resonating from the big room, making impact with what could only be a punching bag. I peeked inside and immediately saw Nathan bouncing around a punching bag before throwing hard punches at the poor thing. Moving into the warehouse, I could only see his upper, shirtless body since he was on the far end of the room with the wrestling ring blocking most of my view. Moving quietly to the edge of the ring, thankful that Rex had not let out a single noise. Unfortunately, the silence was short-lived after I unknowingly bumped into a steel chair, causing it to go clattering to the floor loudly. The noise left a ringing in my ears. I had my eyes tightly closed as I waited for the noise to stop, hoping and praying to whoever was listening that Nathan would not notice me. But alas, he had stopped punching the bag. Even I knew that such a miracle would never happen in this case. "Just 'cause you cannot see me does not mean that I cannot see you," he said with a huff at the end. I slowly opened my eyes and I was relieved to see an amused smile on his face instead of the usual blank or angry look. Moving away from my hiding spot, I walked over to Nathan, who was now sitting on a bench drinking some water. Sweat was rolling down his forehead as well as his exposed chest, which he was quick to wipe away with a towel. Setting Rex down and letting him wander off, I walked over to the punching bag. "Careful there, princess, you might hurt yourself." He chuckled to himself as he looked at me with amusement dancing in his eyes. He must definitely be high to be this cheerful. "Oh please, I can handle myself quite well, thank you very much." I attempted to throw a punch at the bag and boy did I regret that. It was hard and it hurt. Nathan broke out into a laugh. "Yeah sure, just like how you handle yourself against Naomi." He scoffed out loud. "Naomi is a whole different story. Besides, it is not like she scares me, she's just intimidating." I walked over to him and sat at the available space beside him. "It's the same thing, you idiot," he mumbled out, making me gasp at the offense, and he had the audacity to laugh at that too. "Fine then, how about we make a deal on it? More like a bet. You get to stand up to Naomi, Victoria, and Sienna, and maybe then I will believe that you really can handle yourself. But of course you will have to do it in a limited time of a week." He spoke out with a smirk. "What about you?" "I do not think it is even a fair deal." I questioned. "Okay, how about, from tomorrow onwards I am your personal bodyguard?" He said it as though he had accomplished something big, yet his tone carried something I could not quite put my finger on. I got distracted by him petting Rex, who had been playing at his feet for a while now. And weirdly enough, Rex was comfortable with it. Nathan was a dog person? Shocker. And surely that can't be it. Seeing as I am going to be doing something that requires some traits which I certainly do not possess, like bravery, I'm pretty sure that you have to offer something that also gets you out of your comfort zone. So to make things fair, I want you to at least lighten up your behavior, a little less brooding and a lot more cheery and maybe playful. Everyone knew him as a brooding person, so him being cheerful would be unlike him and something he has never done in public. I was waiting for him to turn it down, making me also back down from facing Naomi, but he surprised me when he mumbled out an okay. I quickly whipped my head towards him in shock, ready to protest, but I was surprised at the little distance between us. And it was not helping that he was already facing me. I stopped breathing altogether and watched him watching me. Basically, I held eye contact with him. Rex barking at the lack of attention broke the moment, and I quickly stood up, creating distance between us. I think that I better get going now. I trailed off as I shuffled over to Rex and attached his leash. Slipping my hand into my pocket, I took out the notes Tony had sent. Here, these are the notes Tony sent. He took the notes and I drew back my hand when it made contact with his. Bye. He returned the farewell but called out to me as I was about to exit the warehouse. Your dog is actually cute. Him saying that reminded me of our little scene in the hallway the previous week, making me blush hard, and his knowing look did not help. I mumbled out a thank you before rushing out. Talk about intense and awkward put together. To think that any day this week I would be standing up to Naomi. Nathan had added another clause to the deal and said that if I failed to go through with the bet, then I would have to do whatever he says, basically a slave. From the way I see it, Nathan's part of the deal was easier compared to mine. This really made me shudder in fear just by the thought of being his slave. I was no longer in a good mood as I prepared for school. After taking a quick shower, I put on an outfit which best suited my mood: a pair of black-heeled boots, knee-high white socks, a black skater skirt with a white sleeveless top. The final topping to my outfit was a pink leather jacket. By the time I got to the kitchen, Mom and Dad were already leaving. Mom had made sure to leave behind my breakfast on the table, and Rex was already having his own right next to my chair on the ground. After finishing all of my waffles and juice, I went back to my bathroom to brush my teeth again before finally making my way to school. To say I was shocked to see Nathan by my locker would be an understatement. He was casually leaning on my locker, almost as though there was nothing wrong with doing so. And shocker number 2 was noticing how we were almost matching, literally. He had on a pair of black combat boots, only that his were not heeled like mine, a black jean trouser, white t-shirt that clung to him like a second skin, and a black leather jacket. What are you doing at my locker? I stopped right in front of him and he stood up straight, acknowledging my presence and properly facing me. Personal bodyguard, Nathan Callahan, at your service. He finished off with a little bow at the end, earning an eye roll from me. I gently pushed him aside, allowing me access to my locker. Putting away some books from my bag as well as my half-done English assignment, I also make sure to take out those which I will need during the day. I took off my bag and grabbed the needed tools from it before putting it in the locker as well and locked it securely. When I turn away from my locker, Nathan snatches the books in my hands along with my schedule and proceeds to examine it. People who were still lingering in the hallways were curiously throwing glances at us, and some were already gingerly gossiping and pointing. I could also tell from the astonishment on their faces that they never saw this side of Nathan, smiles and all. Their reaction was making me uncomfortable, and I had not noticed that Nathan had picked up on it. What are you all looking at? Move. His voice boomed through the hallway and had immediate effect as everyone dispersed in different directions. Did you have to be rude to them? I questioned him as we were now making our way to my maths lesson. What? Did you expect me be nice all of a sudden? Simon, baby steps here. This earned a chuckle from me at his theatrics. And if I must say, I am liking how we are matching right now. We should do this more often, it will be our thing. You know, the guard and the guarded. Weirdly, as he said this, he had a grin stuck to his face. Oh no, this was just a coincidence. Besides, what will people think if and when they see us? A frown was already perched up on my face as I voiced my thoughts. Who cares about what any of them think? Me, apparently. This time I did not bother giving him a response since we had gotten to my classroom. I will be here as soon as the lesson is over, and if not, then do not go anywhere without me. He passed my books back to me and left before I could give out a protest. True to his word, when my lesson was over, he was actually waiting for me just beside the door. And this kept going on up until lunchtime, where he bought my food for me, saying that was his way of changing. He went on to stress about carrying my food too, but that was where I drew the line, so after a back and forth banter I got to carry it. In a way, he was starting to get annoying. Brielle and Zick, who were sitting opposite us, were literally mortified to see Nathan smiling so often. Which he only did around me, FYI. What did you do to him? Zick asked with confusion as he stared at Nathan. Yeah, I think you broke him somehow. Brielle backed Zick. Nathan and I eyed each other before laughing at their cluelessness, if that was even a real word. The moment did not last long as my 3 tormentors appeared at our table. Victoria, Naomi, and Sienna stood right beside me. Their presence only left me dreading the moment when I would eventually have to stand up to Naomi. Hey guys, is there room for 3 more? Naomi asked whilst batting her eyelashes, making me wish if they could just fall off. By accident, of course, my eyes locked with Nathan S., who was already staring at me with his arm on the table and his hand supporting his head. He was looking at me expectantly with a smirk marring his face. Yes. I mean no. There is not that much space to take you all in. Even though I would love for all you guys to, join us, I am sure you would get bored by what we will be talking about. I ranted out, and I could even hear Nathan S. low chuckles. Both Zick and Brielle had on huge grins at the fact that I was talking back to Naomi. Don't worry, we will make things interesting. Sienna stated in an overly sweet voice as they all put down their bags. From the corner of my eye I could see Nathan mouthing out the words "my personal slave." How I read that, I seriously do not know, whilst grinning. Immediately I put my leg onto the unoccupied bench, effectively stopping the 3 from sitting down. Did I forget to mention that I have a fracture and my leg needs to be kept in this position? I quickly ranted out. I could already feel sweat forming on my forehead. Thankfully Brielle came to my rescue. She put up both her legs on the remaining space on the bench. This feels nice. It's always good to stretch them out. She let out a dramatic sigh as she leaned onto Zick's side, which he did not seem to mind one bit. Sienna shrieked as she took her bag along with Victoria, who gave me a stink eye as they walked away to their usual table with the other cheerleaders. Naomi took her time at picking up her bag whilst glaring daggers at me, making me swallow a lump forcefully. This is not over, Bennett. Naomi whispered harshly, her words laced with venom. As soon as she walked away I let out a heavy yet shaky sigh whilst putting my head on the table. So, how did you get your fracture again? Nathan voiced out in between his chuckles. Don't you even dare. Immediately he broke out into a fit of laughter at my clear embarrassment. Can't this day be over already? For the rest of lunch, both Nathan and I had to explain our situation to Brielle and Zick, who had not stopped asking us what was happening after Nathan's sudden outburst, which of course still left them shocked. Our little talk did not last that long, as it turned into an argument between myself and Nathan when he kept on stealing more of my fries. He even had the audacity to take my apple. Right after lunch, Nathan proceeded to drag me to the field where the rugby players were training, claiming that, and I quote, "it is an easy way for me to keep an eye on you. I mean, I can take care of myself, right? Right? And did I ever mention that I am not a big fan of sports, especially ones that include violence? At this point I would happily accept a C on my assignment rather than watch a bunch of boys knock each other off their feet and onto the ground. I was rather happy that Zick got Brielle to tag along, and by that I meant drag her too, hence I was not alone. We got seated by the benches that overlooked the field where Nathan and Zick were training, and as the nerd that I was, I took the time to do my work, and surprisingly so did Brielle. I hadn't enjoyed a peaceful moment like this one in a while, and I was just about to find out why. A few minutes into our study session the cheer squad showed up. And at the forefront was Naomi, who after noticing me led the whole team to the edge of our benches. They were doing their cheer practice right in front of us, blocking our view of the field, and Naomi was making it a point to shout as loud as she could just to annoy me. With the way she was screaming, I was wondering how her lungs were still intact. After much effort we were able to ignore them and get on with our work. It was almost time for Nathan and Zick's practice to end when Naomi walked up to us with about 3 books in her hands. Hey nerd, here. I want it done by tomorrow morning. Her hands were extended towards me. Back off, Naomi, Pinky will not do your work for you. Brielle jumped to my rescue, although making me mentally facepalm for the use of the ridiculous nickname. Shut up, freak, I am talking to the nerd, so I would rather appreciate it if you keep your mouth shut and let her answer. She snapped back, grabbing the attention of everyone on the field. This was definitely too much attention. It was making me nervous and so out of place. I could already feel my heart rising up to my throat, clogging my windpipe and stopping me from letting out a reply. Listen, Naomi, you better go back to the rest of your Barbie squad, or else I will make sure that you will need a plastic surgery and nose job after I'm through with you. Brielle spat out with as much venom in her words to even scare me. By the end of her threat she was standing head to head with Naomi, making me notice how they were the same height. I was more than thankful for her reply because she unknowingly prevented me from producing a stupid word vomit. Out of nowhere, Zik and Nathan showed up, making Naomi back off a little. Zik went to stand beside Brielle whilst Nathan came to mine and put an arm around my shoulder, which I did not notice since I was too focused on my ringing ears. I am sure Brielle made herself clear. You are not needed here, Naomi. Zik spoke out. Yeah, so why don't you just go away and leave us alone? Nathan backed Zik up and in the process pulled me closer to his side. Seeing this, Naomi shrieked and walked away with her face boiling with anger and a clenched fist. As soon as she was out of earshot, Nathan whispered in my ear, I told you a bodyguard helps. My mouth was just so dry that I could not even offer a verbal response, so I settled for a head nod. From there we made our way out of the field and went to the car park. Zik and Nathan, not wanting to take a shower at the school, proceeded to their cars and headed their separate ways after saying their goodbyes. Brielle, wanting to put an end to the day as much as I did, jumped into her car and me into mine as we bid each other goodbye. My week was going pretty okay so far, which was very unusual, until Friday, of course. I might as well claim that it was my worst day ever, and that coming from me says a lot. Nothing was going my way, in fact everything was against me. It was as though the day was cursed by some witch who was out to get me. For what reasons exactly I do not know. My day actually went out like this. I woke up late, all because my alarm clock was not working, meaning I needed to buy a new set of batteries. After I had finished preparing for school, that is when I found out that it was pouring heavily outside. But that was not even the worst part. The worst part of it all was when my car refused to start. 15 minutes, a couple of curses, some screaming, and 50 tries later, my car finally started. Not caring about the risk of getting speeding tickets, I zoomed all the way to school. When I got there, I rushed out of my car and made my way towards the school building, unaware of the muddy puddle ahead when another car splashed into it, drenching me whole with the dark brown water, and I did not even have a change of clothes. Therefore the rest of the day I was moody, making Nathan seem like the most cheerful person on the planet. He even tried pulling out some silly stunts but was still unable to make me crack a smile. Talk about being moody, I wasn't even on my periods. And of course, like the devil that she is, fate saved the most horrific for last. Later at lunchtime, I remembered that I had not done Naomi's work, which I had accepted to do without letting Brielle know of it. The three of them walked up to my locker where I currently was, and Sienna was first to announce her presence. Well, look what the pig dragged in, an even muddier pig. They all burst into their pitched laughter at the stupid joke. That was not even funny at all. I am sure even Rex can do a better joke and he can't speak. So the joke is on you, you witches. At the moment I did not even care what the aftermath would be if I answered back. I was already experiencing the worst day ever, might as well put a cherry on the top. Hang on to your hats, people, this is going to be a bumpy ride. Are you done? I have places to be. My face was void of all emotions, tone as plain as ever, and arms were folded across my chest. Watch it, nerd, you do not know what we are capable of. Naomi hissed in my face, her venom not even affecting me the slightest bit, which was a first. What? Are you going to lock me in an empty room and beat me up again, or are you going to threaten me with a fame that you do not even have? Please, you have already done that already. I spat out bravely, earning a shocked yet frightening look from Naomi. Just shut up and hand me my finished work. Her tone had a certain warning to it which was very cold. You do not get to tell me what to do, and by the way, I did not do your homework. So what will you do about it now? The courage my voice held was leaving me shocked, but I was not holding back now. You don't know the type of danger you are getting yourself into, you nerd. Victoria stated. Unknowingly, I took a step forward in a challenging manner. You know, I really do not get why it is that I get insulted just because I am smarter than you three idiots put together. A crowd was starting to form around us, and some were already taking out their phones to record the whole thing. We are smarter than you, freak. We are better at everything compared to you. Sienna jumped in. Oh really, I'm pretty sure that the reason behind you bullying me is because I was better than you all on the cheer squad. Yep, I was once on the squad when I first started high school. Long story short, I was good and they weren't, so Naomi played dirty and got me kicked off the squad. They should be happy that I never blabbered out their stupid secrets that they spilled during the few sessions that I attended. Just be glad that I am not like you to showcase other people's life situations. So just take this as a warning and back off, leave me and my friend alone or else. I was all up in Naomi's face. I finished off and without waiting for their response, walked away with the crowd parting to let me through. Thankfully, after that whole scene, no one bothered to question me, allowing me the peace and quiet that I really needed. And thanks to the game that was playing after school, no one was in class but rather they were on the field cheering the rugby team on. Brielle tried to convince me to come along and support Nathan and Zick, but seeing as I was not in the mood, she took my refusal without question. She attended the game and I made my way back to my ever-quiet home. A note was left on the table for me. Apparently my parents left it there. It stated that they had to leave for an emergency trip and they would be back Monday evening. I placed the note back on the table and attended to Rex, who was running around in circles trying to catch his tail, which I still do not understand why dogs do it. I served him some dog food before going to my room for a much-needed shower, which I hoped would wash away the day's misery into the drain along with the foam-filled water. After changing into a pink jogger, a white t-shirt and a pair of white sneakers, I decided to rather go out and buy my dinner. Grabbing my phone, pink and white earphones and a $20 bill, I made my way to the nearest pizza restaurant. I ended up in front of the Pizza King entrance and proceeded towards the till. I walked up to the counter with my eyes on my phone's screen, and when I finally looked up, I was surprised to see a strange guy smiling widely at me. "Welcome to the Pizza King. What can I get you, Abigail?" Him knowing my name left me even more surprised. Did I have a name tag or something with my name stuck to me? Sorry, but how do you know my name?" He chuckled before giving a reply. "I delivered pizza to your house the other day." He said out proudly as though he had accomplished something big by telling me. "Oh, but I do not remember telling you my name and neither do I know yours." He nervously scratched the back of his neck and I could see slight blushing. "I mainly deliver the pizza to your house and I once overheard your mom saying it. Anyway, the usual Hawaiian, right?" I was baffled by this guy's behavior, so I replied with a slight head nod, then lowly added that I wanted a small-sized pizza. He left for a little while and when he returned he had a large pizza in hand. "Sorry, but I ordered a small." He just smiled and pushed the pizza over to me. "If I do recall correctly, you still had some change from the last time I delivered to your house." He was a weird guy for his age since he seemed to be a bit older than me. I looked at the box, then back to him. "Yeah, but my change was not enough to buy a large pizza," I said in confusion, which he only returned by smiling wider. "You seemed like you needed something good today to lighten your mood. You can take it as a Toby special. I will pay, or maybe not since I work here, just don't tell my boss." The last part was said in a whisper, making me let out a chuckle for the first time today. "Since you insist so much, I might as well take it." "Thanks, Toby." His smile was getting contagious as I ended up returning one of my own before bidding him goodbye. That was a weird yet cheerful encounter. I thought to myself as I made my way back home, not in much of a rush. When I got home I was greeted by silence that I was now used to, but this time it was different. Something was off. The silence was too much, to the point where it was deafening. I called out to Rex, but he did not show up. With the box of pizza still in hand, I walked around the house calling out with no success in finding him. Walking into my room, what I saw was not at all what I had expected. "Please no." Unconsciously, I dropped the box of pizza and as it hit the ground I followed suit and fell to my knees. My palm was over my mouth, as a cry came out at the scene in front of me. Rex lay on the ground in a pool of blood with his body a few centimeters away from his dismembered head. His eyes were wide open, staring right at me. His once dark brown eyes, lifeless right in front of me. Tears were streaming down my cheeks and at some point I had begun sobbing with my body shaking uncontrollably. I took out my phone and called the first number that came into my mind. Noon answered and I was directed to voicemail. "PL please, as soon as you get this message come over to my house, I need your help." I think that someone is. I did not get to finish my sentence as my phone was snatched out of my hand from behind. I whipped my head around and came face to face with a grinning Tony. "Hello there. Sorry for the mutt, but it just wouldn't shut up." The thing kept on barking and that was hurting my very sensitive ears. He reached out for my hand and I quickly drew back. "Don't touch me," I fiercely warned him, as I angrily wiped at my tears that were still running down my cheeks, but he laughed out at my show of confidence. "I told you she can be a feisty one," he said to the two men I had yet to notice standing either side of him, and they both let out deep chuckles. Without warning, Tony forcefully took hold of my arm and pulled me onto my feet and closer to him like I was some lifeless rag doll. I tried to get my hand out of his vice-like grip, but it was of no use. Even my protests fell on deaf ears. He dragged me downstairs and before leaving the house he chucked my phone onto the concrete floor, causing it to shatter into pieces. He pulled me outside where a black, tinted Range Rover stood proudly in the sunset. I thought of screaming out, but he read my mind before I could even finish the thought and clamped his dirty hand over my lips. Soon after closing the car's door he pulled out a bottle and cloth. I had watched enough kidnapping movies to know what that was and what comes next. His goons held me down as he poured the chloroform onto the cloth before pressing it over my mouth and nose. I tried not to breathe it in, but I was never good at holding my breath for long. Like I said, I was never into sports, and that includes swimming. I ended up taking a huge whiff of the chloroform. Now that I have been in the kidnapped person's shoes, I understand that it was not easy holding in your breath for so long. I am sorry to every TV character I ever yelled at for breathing in these stuff. I should have probably faked it too, but I guess now is a little too late. Slowly, my eyes started to close on their own and I could feel the darkness pulling me in, but there was nothing I could do about it. Sleep tight, princess. Those were the last words I heard before I was completely sucked into the deep slumber. I let out a groan as I woke up feeling very dizzy and a rising headache. It took a few seconds for the dizziness to settle down, and that was when I noticed my surroundings. I was in a large room filled with many expensive artifacts. I was sleeping in a really big bed, king-sized probably, which was so comfortable, might I add. I slowly got out of bed and did not bother taking in the rest of the room since that was of no use. Moving over to the window, I drew back the curtains and realized that it was probably the middle of the night judging by how dark it was outside, and I was also in a two-story house. Rushing back into the room, I tried my luck at the door, but of course it was locked. I went through every corner in search of what I could use for my escape, but I found nothing, not even a hidden cell phone. The windows were locked and screwed shut, every single one of them. I was a true definition of a damsel in distress. Walking back to the bed, I curled up and did what I could. At the moment I cried. This was probably the worst way to figure out that you are claustrophobic, and guess what, I was. My breathing became labored as I kept on crying, and I somehow ended up crying myself to sleep. I slowly opened my eyes to the feel of something gliding across my face. I immediately shuffled away when I came face to face with Tony hovering over me with his pointer finger mid-air. "Morning, princess, did you sleep well?" He was in a cheery mood, but I did not offer him any response. Instead, I increased the distance between us by moving further away from him. "I made breakfast for you." His tone was irritatingly sweet, but I knew better than to dwell over that facade of his. "I was starting to worry that you would not wake up." There was a moment of silence between us as I kept my lips sealed. Just then I heard the doorbell ringing and Tony excused himself before going out, locking the door from outside. I eyed the tray of food on the bedside but did not dare think of touching it. I was hungry, not stupid. A few seconds later I heard the sound of 2 pairs of feet coming up the stairs, and some seconds more a key was being jammed into the keyhole. "Little brother, I would like for you to meet my guest." Abigail, Tony said out as he opened the door and stepped aside to review someone I had never even expected. "I can't believe he was in on this," I thought out as he made eye contact with me. "Toby? Abigail?" Toby questioned whilst looking at me wide-eyed. "Oh, so you two know each other. What a small world this is. I see there is no need for any more introductions." Grinning widely, Tony seemed like he had won a lottery. "What kind of sick game is this? At least tell me that she is not your way of getting your title back, because I want no part in it." Toby yelled out furiously. "Can you just calm down? She is just going to be a form of leverage. I noticed that Callahan is close to her, so I am going to use her as a way to get what I want. Of course, either way I am going to gain something. If I lose to the fight, which I highly doubt will happen, I will still have her, but when I win I get my title back and Callahan will be off my back along with her." He spoke out triumphantly. From the looks of it, Tony was older but surely lacked the brains which I hope Toby compensated for in the family. I could have made my escape through the open door, but with the two standing in front of it, I could already tell that my chances of making it were low. "You know, when I said that I would help you get back your title, I never agreed to be part of a kidnapping. She does not need to be involved in any of this. You better let her go right now or else," Toby threatened, but from what I could see, Tony was having none of it. "I am not falling for your empty threats, little brother. If you are not going to help me, then I am okay with that, you coward. I will do it all on my own, so get out. I no longer need you here." It looks like Callahan is not the only one with a soft spot for her. He was staring at me seething, as he finished his statement with as much venom to leave me with goosebumps. Toby spared a sympathetic look at me before his brother was kicking him out of the room, along with the little ray of hope that I had gotten. The audible clicking of the lock resonated around the now silent room. About 10 minutes later I heard the loud slamming of what could only be the front door, followed by the revving of a car engine, and from there on it was just silence. Both brothers had left a while ago, leaving me to the deafening silence. I had put all my willpower in trying not to eat the food left behind by Tony, but by midday I had cleaned the plate dry. Tony never visited again, and judging by the ghostly quiet house, I knew that I was the only living being around. And as a way of passing time, I ended up taking a long shower, and surprisingly there were about a handful of outfits that were in the closet. I picked out a simple white blouse, a pair of dark skinny jeans, and some sandals. Unfortunately, there was not a single outfit with pink, instead there were more blacks and whites. By the time nightfall came around, I had walked each and every perimeter of the room, and I now knew it even with my eyes closed. I was starving, but I did not have the guts to announce it to whoever might or might not be in the building with me. Hence I did the only logical thing a sane person would do in my position. I slept my hunger away. And of course the outcome of sleeping with an empty stomach was that my dreams were filled with different types of foods. They ranged from fruits to junk foods. Weirdly enough, I could even feel the drool running down my chin, but I was not sure if that was also part of the dream or if it was actually happening. Slowly opening my eyes, my hands made their way to my mouth, and thankfully there was no drool anywhere on my face. Soon finding the real reason why I woke up, two men had gotten into the room and were making their way towards me. They got on either side of the bed, making me scramble to my knees, ready to run since they had left the door open. "Stay away from me," I warned, but even I could hear the cracking within my voice from fear. They did not respond, but rather proceeded to grab onto both my arms, holding me in place as another man walked in holding a cloth and familiar bottle in hand. I tried to put up a fight, but it was of no use. The cloth was pressed onto my mouth and nose, and I eventually took a whiff of the chemical, successfully making me lose the last bit of strength I had left before finally falling unconscious. I woke up with a familiar headache and dizziness. I tried to caress my temples, but the effort was in vain. Turns out I had been tied onto a chair in an empty, dingy-looking room which only had a single dangling, dull light that did not make much of a difference. There was no telling what time of the day it was due to the lack of windows. The room was so silent that I could literally hear a ringing in my ears. What felt like hours later, a door at the corner of the room was opened, and in walked Tony with two other men pushing a table with wheels attached to it. On top of the table was a small TV. "Hello, my little Spitfire. Did you sleep well?" He had on a megawatt smile, making it seem like kidnapping was something he did on a daily basis. "Oh, I don't know. Despite the fact that my dog was murdered not long ago, I got kidnapped by a psycho. My stomach is literally empty, and of course waking up to this rock-hard chair. What more would a person want to have sweet dreams?" I didn't want to seem mean, but since you asked, no. I did not sleep well. Surprisingly, I had the guts to talk bad about him, to him, and I did all that in a calm voice. "I can see that you are holding up quite fine. I in fact have good news for you. Lover boy is going to be here any minute now." He paused as another man walked up to him and whispered in his ear. "Speak of the devil. He is one to speak." Insert IRO. Just in time. "But don't you worry, you will not miss out on the action. You will not be getting the front row seats, but you will definitely get to see the first broadcast." He gave out an evil laugh and walked out with his goons on his heels. I know that I was the one being held captive, but I just couldn't help but wish that Nathan was going to be alright. I squirmed in my spot in an attempt to loosen the ropes, but to no avail. The only outcome of it were bruised wrists. Some minutes later, the screen in front of me switches on, and on it were Tony and Nathan in a wrestling ring, circling each other. Neither one showed the other any sign of attacking first, but after a bit more circling, Tony grows tired and throws his first punch, aiming at Nathan's jaw. He catches nothing but air. They do this for a couple more rounds, and Nathan allowed Tony a few punches to his side and stomach. I had only witnessed Nathan fighting in the ring once, but that was enough to let me see that he was holding back right now. It was almost as though he was stalling. He was calm yet alert somehow, which was the opposite of Tony. Tony was acting on impulse as he started throwing punches left, right and center, as well as a few kicks. Only a handful managed to get through to Nathan, but they do nothing to slow him down. My heart pounced in my chest as Nathan finally starts to get a little on the offensive. Tony was fast on his feet compared to Nathan, making him land a few more jabs and uppercuts. This was worrying me more, and I could already feel a tear rolling down my dry cheek. Seeing Nathan getting hit proved to be more painful than I would have imagined, and before long I was silently shedding more tears. In the end, I knew that I was the cause for this much violence. If I hadn't been so adamant about talking to Nathan that other day, then I would never have met Tony. Rex would still be alive and prancing in my room or chasing his tail as usual. I would be in my room or at Brielle's house, not getting kidnapped by some psycho. There was no other way of looking at it, and yet I could do nothing to change it. I had never felt so helpless in my entire life, and that is saying a lot considering what I had been through in the hands of Naomi. And right now Nathan was out there, bruised and battered as ever, all thanks to me. I was such a mess up. I was in the middle of wallowing in my own self-pity when I heard a slight commotion just outside the only door in the room. The noise was getting louder by the second, and suddenly a body broke through the wooden door. Another tumbled onto the floor before two people I had never expected strode in. Zick. My voice came out shaky at my disbelief and relief of seeing him. He ran up to me and hastily untied me. "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I thought I was going to die here," I said as I pulled him into a hug. "You do not know how relieved I am to see you. And I would like to take all the credit, but it was all Toby. He was the one who told us of your whereabouts and helped us get in here regardless of the security." I looked at the person in question, who was spotting a big and genuine smile. "Thank you so much, Toby." I pulled him into a hug. He dismissed it, saying it was nothing, before leading us out of the confined room. As we stepped out of my previous cell, we were met with a crew of men clad in black and were now charging at us. Zick and Toby moved forward, readying themselves for a fight, whilst I moved back with my eyes now closed and hands over my now ringing ears. Did I ever mention I was afraid of violence? I did? Yeah, well, I'm saying it again, violence scares me to the bone. With each passing moment, I got more worried about Nathan. I slid down against the closest wall and onto the ground, where I brought up my legs to my chest, buried my face in between them, and did what I do best, cry. Crying is the only thing I have been doing this whole weekend, and even though I knew it would not get me anywhere, I still did it. A hand on my arm made me panic as I tried to scoot away. It wasn't until a pair of hands held my face that I stopped to listen. "It's okay, Abby. It's just me, Zick." After calming down a little, Zick pulled me to my feet and wiped away my tears. Both Zick and Toby had littered bruises across their face, which led me to cringe inwardly. Toby even had a bruise forming around his eye. I wanted to apologize to no end, but before I could do that, Toby was leading us away and Zick was holding my hand and gently pulling me right behind him. No words were spoken as we went through a never-ending hallway until we came to a stop at two large doors. I could tell from the sounds of struggling that Tony and Nathan were behind it. We stealthily walked in, and I immediately regretted it. There, in the middle of the ring, is a boxing ring where two bodies are tumbling all over the mat. They come to a stop and Tony was on top of Nathan, giving him blows after blows. Nathan was shielding his face, but I could see his arms weakening after every blow. Call it spiritual possession or something along those lines, but seeing Nathan about to give in made me snap, and I dashed towards the ring, losing Zick's hold in the process. I even bypassed the few goons standing by the edge of the ring. I was seeing red, which was weird coming from me. I got into the ring and dived onto Tony's back and started pounding onto it with a clenched fist. He changed from trying to kill Nathan to attempting to pry me off of his back. It was seconds before I found myself gliding across the ring and hitting my head onto a metal bar. Completely forgetting Nathan, Tony started stalking towards me with a mission to kill. And frankly speaking, at the moment he was indeed the predator and I was the prey. "I never pegged you for one to fight back, but do not worry, just let me finish up that stupid little boy over there and I will show you your place afterwards," he said snarkily. "His name is Nathan, you idiot." I snapped at him, adrenaline still pumping in my veins. "He is nothing more than a stupid little boy." It took me a while to finally register what he had said, and as soon as I did, I was spotting what I could only call an evil smile. Nathan had gotten up and was stalking towards Tony with rage clear on his face. He taps Tony's shoulder, and as Tony turned around he got quite a heavy punch. Tony stumbled onto the ground and Nathan seized the moment and jumps on top of Tony and pounds aggressively at his face. In all this commotion I had not noticed Zick and Toby fighting with the goons that were standing by the ring a little while ago, and thankfully, they were winning. After some time, Nathan finally left a bleeding and unconscious Tony to recover on the ground. And without thinking, I dashed straight for Nathan and jumped into his arms. You know those cliché movies or novels where in this case the two main characters lose themselves and kiss? Yeah, it happened here too. Nathan had his lips planted on mine. I could taste the blood coming from his busted lip, but truly speaking, I did not mind. I kind of liked it. Fairy tale kisses do exist, and I had just experienced mine. In a dirty warehouse. In the middle of a ring. To Nathan Callahan. What a great way to lose a first kiss, am I right? Nathan pulled away slowly, with his eyes still closed. Do you know how dangerous that was? He could have seriously hurt you. His eyes were now opened and were looking directly into mine. His eyes were solely on mine, and that was seriously making me self-conscious. I could feel my cheeks coloring, and it was not helping that Nathan had noticed and was flashing me his cheeky smile. Are you okay? I had lost all strength in my lips, so I resorted to nodding, my eyes now straying away from his and looking at anything but him. For good measure, Nathan looked me over for any injuries and found none aside from my now aching head due to the metal bar I had hit. He saw it as a way to reassure himself, but I just basically thought he was making an excuse to get his hands on me. Perv. Are you two lovebirds done yet? Zick asked from the edge of the ring with Toby by his side. Not far from them were unconscious bodies of Tony's goons, and that seriously left me questioning their strength. At his question, I became a blushing mess and hid my face on Nathan's chest. He let out a chuckle at my antics as he pulled me further into him, which was somehow concerning since he was injured, but he did not seem to mind. Toby walked into the ring and checked on his brother's pulse. After ensuring that it was indeed still alive, he came to stand in front of us looking very sorry. Look man, I am really sorry for the trouble my brother caused for all of you. I am sure his mind will be set on something else in no time. Toby reassured. Thank you for helping us out. And as for the title, he can have that. I think it is high time I stand down on the whole fighting stuff and start looking for a better line of work. I am sick and tired of nursing black eyes and broken ribs. Nathan genuinely said to Toby, and they did that weird bro handshake thing. Thanks a lot man. That means a little less people for him to bother. He let out a humorless chuckle as his eyes strayed back to Tony still lying on the ground. We better get going. I do not want to stay another second in this place. Zick voiced out and made a move to leave, but Toby's words brought him to a stop. I would rather stay back. I want to make sure that Tony is doing alright. Yeah, he made some wrong decisions, but he is still my brother and we all make mistakes. I could clearly see the love Toby had for his brother in his eyes, and it was really moving. Are you sure? Zick asked, and Toby gave him a firm nod. I broke out of Nathan's hold and walked up to Toby. Thank you again. I threw my arms around him and he returned it. You are welcome, Abigail. Offering one last smile, I walked back into Nathan's arms that immediately welcomed me. He pulled me into him and gave me a kiss on my head. And with that we walked out of the warehouse and into the cold night air where Nathan's all too familiar BMW was parked. Turns out we were exactly 19 hours away from home, and with the current time being 9:30 p.m., we would be arriving at around midday. I had cleaned some of Zick's bruises before he got behind the wheel, and now I was currently in the back seat with Nathan. Getting his bruises and wounds cleaned up was a hell of a fit in itself. When it comes to these kinds of stuff, Nathan turns into a 5-year-old visiting a doctor for the first time, and trust me when I say he was the whole package, grumpy and all. He was giving me excuse after excuse to the point where I was about to give up. Okay, how about this? If you sit still enough for me to clean you up then, I swallowed thickly as I summed up the little confidence that I had to say what I was about to say. I double-checked on Zick to make sure that he was not eavesdropping before leaning over Nathan and placing my mouth over his ear. I will give you a kiss. I quickly averted my eyes as soon as the words left my lips. Without even looking, I could tell that he was spotting a huge smile. Did you hear that, Zick? I am getting a kiss for staying still. Nathan confidently said to Zick, which had me blushing like crazy. Zick let out a snort before responding, if I had known that 2 years ago then I wouldn't have had to put up with your tantrums after every one of your matches. Who knew a simple kiss could go a long way? Nathan let out a disgusted sound which had me and Zick bursting into laughter. Nathan signaled for me to get on with it, and I gladly did. Not even a single wince came out of him whilst I was cleaning him, and his eyes did not even waver from my face. Was this weird? Yes. Did I like it? Yes. And did I want him to stop? Definitely not. After a while I finally finished up with his once bleeding temple. Okay, and just like that the boy attacked me. His lips met mine, his arm went around my waist and he pulled me impossibly close to him. His lips moved passionately against mine and I returned the favor. His hand did not wander around, which I truly appreciated. Ugh, you two are so disgustingly cute. Now I miss my girl, he sighed out. I pulled back from Nathan and hid my tomato face in his chest, which had him groaning out loud at the ruined moment. Seriously? Nathan said to himself, but I still heard it. But Zik was right though, I missed Brielle. She had to stay behind and clean up my house. She was also on lookout just in case my parents came back earlier than they were supposed to. You know, one would ask, hey, why not inform the police? But another would answer, it's South illegal street fighting business, so if Tony goes down so will Nathan and everyone else. And by the way, the one to ask was me and the one to answer was Nathan. Oh no. I exclaimed as I remembered what tomorrow was. We have to submit our assignment tomorrow and we haven't even done much on it. I panicked as I thought more about my grade. I can't believe this. I let it slip my mind completely. I am going to get an F, and that is if she is feeling generous. I could feel myself starting to hyperventilate. Hey, don't worry about it. We have plenty of hours on our hands and I am sure there is a pen and some paper somewhere in the dashboard. Nathan's palms on my face definitely calmed me down. We can do this and ace it too. As he said this, Zik had already rummaged through the said dashboard and brought out a notebook and pen, along with some pills and water which Nathan chugged down for his pain. Come on Einstein, let us do this. Nathan pulled me into his lap, which I tried to squirm out of, but with his firm hold I was not going anywhere. As soon as I stopped my squirming, he kissed me on the forehead and we began brainstorming. Who said the bad boy doesn't have any registers? It took 2 energy drinks, 3 breakfast bars and some arguing for us to finish the work. But it was worth it 5 hours later. Exhaustion could not even begin to describe how I was feeling at the moment. Still in Nathan's arms, I was able to fall asleep to the faint, non-existent circles that he was drawing with his thumb on my back. He kept offering me kisses on the forehead every now and then, which I was still adjusting to. Nathan was showing more emotion than I had ever seen him showcase since ever. And thanks to him, I got to rest with a smile on my face. I was jolted awake by the slamming of brakes. My face would have kissed the back of Zik's seat if it weren't for Nathan's quick reflexes. What the heck, Zik? His groggy voice was enough to tell me that we both had fallen asleep. Sleep still clouded my eyes, so it took me a little while to adjust to the bright sunlight. Staring outside, I recognized the brick walls painted white that stood not far from the parking lot we were in at the moment. Sorry for that, I hadn't noticed how fast I was going. But you guys have to submit that assignment before this period ends, so. Move. Zik yelled out, successfully chasing away the little bit of sleep that was still hovering around. We stumbled into each other a few times before grabbing all our papers and rushing out. Just as we got out, Nathan took my hand into his and turned to Zik, who was still sitting lazily in the car. Do you not have an assignment to hand in? Zik shrugged slightly. Brielle took care of it for me. Such a great girlfriend, am I right? Now get out of here, I want to sleep for a little while. Zik snuggled into the back seat. My mind was stuck on the single word he had used, girlfriend? Bri has got some serious tea to spill. Nathan did not let me ponder long over it and pulled me into the building. We ran through the dozen identical hallways before finally making it to the English classroom. From outside the room we could hear loud chatter coming from the other side of the door. As soon as Nathan walked into the room with my hand still in his, all chatter ceased and every single pair of eyeballs were glued to us. Mrs. Roberts was nowhere in sight as we made our long stretch to her desk where a pile of other assignments stood. Nathan took a stapler and attached our papers together before placing them with the others. Just as he put down our papers, the lunch bell rang and Nathan started out holding my hand tighter. I could hear the uproar that followed as soon as we left the room. The halls were spilling with hungry students rushing to get to the cafeteria in time for the good stuff. Only a few actually stopped to shamelessly stare at me and Nathan. Whispers could be heard and I was starting to feel awkward. Nathan noticed and let go of my hand only to pull me into his side and wrap his arm around my shoulder. Great, now I am a blushing mess. Talk about staking a claim. The usual clicking of heels rang against the lockers and the sea of people in the hallway parted for Naomi and the other two, leading directly to us. They strutted with their heads held high and stopped right in front of me. Utter distaste was painted on their faces as they all gave me a once-over. I had just faced a lunatic only a few hours ago. I could definitely face 3 bullies. I think. Right? I mentally prepared myself for the insults, but that's the thing. They never came. Naomi stepped to the side and continued on her way, which shocked literally everyone, including Victoria and Sienna, who ran after her a second later. Well, that was unexpected. I voiced out to no one in particular. Not really, I had a talk with her on Friday just after the game. She came to me and badmouthed you and I couldn't take it. Nathan said as we continued on our way to the cafeteria. What did you tell her? I looked up at him curiously, but all he did was kiss my forehead. It's nothing to worry your smart brain about. And that was good enough to get me blushing yet again and forget all about what we were talking about. When we entered the cafeteria, I was tuck-led to the ground in what one would call a bear hug. Pinky, thank God you are okay. I was so worried that I even chewed my nails to the nubs. Please tell me you are not hurt. Brielle questioned, still attached to my body on the ground, which drew quite a lot of attention from just about the whole school. I wasn't until about a second ago. She quickly scrambled to her feet as Nathan pulled me to mine. I mumbled out a thank you before I was being dragged to our usual table, Nathan following behind, and I could hear him laughing at my situation. Zick was casually sitting at our table, pretty much inhaling his pizza slices. Hey, I thought you said you wanted to sleep? He nodded and swallowed another slice. I did, but I could not do it on an empty stomach. I nodded to that since it seemed reasonable enough. Brielle turned me to face her, and just like that, I was in an interview. She was asking questions left, right and center, and I could not keep up. She had been my best friend ever since I could remember, but I was still not able to keep up with her enthusiasm. Thankfully my knight came to the rescue and lifted me from my seat to the one beside him. I think that is enough questions for one day. Brielle complied with much reluctance. I looked up to Nathan, who was already looking at me, and mouthed a thank you, which he responded to with a smile and joined our hands together underneath the table. Okay, that's it, pay up you loser. Brielle stated all of a sudden to Zick, who fished a $50 bill out of his wallet and placed it onto her outstretched hand. I told you they would eventually fall for each other. I mean, did you see the way Nathan used to look at her? Zick responded with a huff. Wait, you two actually bet on us? Nathan asked the two, and Brielle only offered a smile before carrying on with her lunch. This was a happy ending to the day, wasn't it? Not. I spoke too soon. Simon Le Nathan was interrupted by the ringing of his phone, and whoever the caller was, got Nathan in a sour mood. He picked it up, and seconds later he ended the call and was on his feet and stomping out. Without thinking, I was on my feet and running after him. I was able to catch up to him in the now empty hallway. Hey, what happened in there? What's wrong? It's my mother. I was getting some serious déjà vu at the moment. We were running through the hospital and did not stop at the reception, just like the last time I had been here. The only difference here was that we were running hand in hand and took the elevator, not the stairs. The 15 seconds we took waiting for the elevator doors to open were the most nerve-wracking in my entire life. Nathan had not informed me on anything on our way, and him constantly squeezing my hand was not helping the slightest. The doors slid open and we rushed out. Unlike the last time, there were no doctors rushing up and about. Nathan walked up to his mother's door, which was closed, and his hand hovered over the handle, shaking slightly. I think I will do. I tried excusing myself to give him some privacy, but he quickly drew me back. No, I want you here with me. He said, so vulnerable, and his eyes looking into mine showed a broken boy. Are you sure? A single nod was all it took for me to step closer to him and hold his hand tighter. Nathan let out a big puff of air before gripping the handle and opening the door. Two doctors were in the room, talking to Nathan's now conscious mother. She had turned her focus to us the moment the door had swung open. Her eyes were glued to Nathan, who was frozen in place and looking at his mother with unshed tears at the rims of his eyes. And that was when it hit me, Nathan's mom was awake after so long, and she was right in front of me. Well dang, I was meeting the parents already, or parent I guess. Nate? At her weak voice, Nathan let go of my hand and walked up to his mother. He took a moment to truly look at her. Mom. He embraced her, and she returned it, though with less strength. The doctors excused themselves and left me as the third wheel to the mother-son reunion. It was so awkward standing there, watching Nathan and his mother cry their hearts out. Was it wrong if I just stepped out for a while? It probably was, since I had promised Nathan I would be here with him. Talk about a third wheel. Minutes later, both mother and son finally pulled away from the hug. Oh my boy, I am so sorry for putting you through all that and making you grow up without me. Tears were forming in her eyes and her voice grew hoarse. And you got so big. It feels like yesterday when I saw you and you were only about a few inches shorter than you are now. Her voice got stronger with every word. It's okay, Mom. And you look like you haven't aged a day. I missed you so much, Mom. My heart was cracking more at how broken Nathan seemed, but I could still see how happy he was to finally talk to his mother. He truly did miss her. Maybe I should let them have their heartfelt moment alone. It looks like you had someone keeping you company in my absence. You can come and sit here, young lady. I was on my way out when she finally noticed me. Oh no, I do not think I should intrude any further. I tried my luck, but it seemed no was not a word in her vocabulary. Nonsense. Come and sit here. I had wanted so bad to refuse her, but I just couldn't. She slowly pat the space on the bed. I looked at Nathan, who gave me a smile and nodded reassuringly. Slowly I moved from the door to her side, where she insisted I sit on the bed. What is your name, young lady? Her voice was truly melodic and could make any word sound pleasant. Abigail. Abigail Bennett. It's nice meeting you, Mrs. Callahan. Mentioning her last name brought a sad smile to her face, but she was quick to change it. You can call me Gabriella, sweetheart. Thank you for being with my son. She said so genuinely it made me want to go to my knees and do anything for her. At that moment the door swung open and one of the previous doctors walked in. Mr. Callahan, can we have a word? His tone was so professional that it did not disclose anything. Nathan nodded as he wiped away the excess tears and got up from the bed. I will be back in a bit, he said with a kiss on Gabriella's forehead, then mine. Him kissing me in front of his mother had me blushing, which he obviously noticed, and flashed me his pearly whites before walking out. So, how did you two meet? Gabriella asked with a huge smile and held my hand in hers. Well. Nathan walked in 15 minutes later with a stoic expression, and I knew something was not right. He was quick to cover it up as his mother looked at him, still with a few happy tears in her eyes from the conversation we just had only a few seconds ago. He walked up to us and returned to his previous position on the bed. Is everything all right? She asked, and I could see the effort he put in trying to cover up whatever was bothering him. Yeah, everything is just fine. Great. Abigail here was just telling me about the time you two played laser tag. Nathan let out a chuckle as he recalled the memory too. A nurse walked in with Gabriella's medicine and asked us to leave since Gabriella needed her rest. We bid her goodbye and Nathan promised to come back the following day with me. It was not long before we were walking in the parking lot hand in hand. Nathan suddenly came to a stop. Hey Abby, I know this isn't the best way to do this, but I just feel like I really have to ask you. Do you want to be my girlfriend? My heart stopped beating for a full second, and in that second I had completely forgotten how to breathe. He had dropped the big question on me. Abby? I had not realized that I had froze up until Nathan squeezed my hand. Yes. Yes, I would love to be your girlfriend. A giant smile broke out on his lips, and he stood there just staring at me. Nathan, are you okay? I just didn't think you would say yes. So I have a girlfriend now? His statement brought a smile to my own face, and I nodded to answer his question. Can I kiss my girlfriend? I could feel another blush coming up, but nodded nonetheless, and just like that we were kissing. In a parking lot. In front of a hospital. A few minutes later Nathan was driving me to my house, my hand in his and huge smiles on our faces. I could officially state that I had a boyfriend now. I was going to be screaming over this in a few minutes with Brielle. Ecstatic, could not begin to describe how I was feeling, but I could not help but feel that something was bothering Nathan. His phone rang at an incoming call and he pulled out his phone and offered it to me. Can you answer that for me? I am out of hands at the moment. Nodding, I took his phone, answered the call and set it on loudspeaker. Hey Zick, Nathan is driving right now, but I got you on loudspeaker. Hey guys, Nathan, there is a man who just talked to me right now and he said he needs to speak with you urgently. Zick's tone was quite serious. He said he couldn't get in touch with you over the phone, so he went to wait for you at your house. Okay. I just need to drop Abby at her house first. After bidding him goodbye, I turned to face Nathan, who had a frown etched up on his face. Do you know who the man could be? He shook his head as a no. I was now standing in my house, which was empty as usual. Mom and Dad would be arriving in about 30 minutes and they would not suspect anything. Everything was as it was before my kidnapping. Brielle had managed to put everything back in place and even got me a new phone which stood on the coffee table. Walking up to my room, I stopped at the entrance as a picture of Rex flashed in my head. I could not tell Mom and Dad what had happened, which means I was going to have to lie about Rex's disappearance. How was I to sleep in the same room that my dog was murdered? I can't do this. Walking to my closet, I grabbed a gym bag and stuffed my clothes inside. If my parents were to ask where Rex was, I was probably going to break down in front of them, so going to Brielle's house was best. So after packing my bag, I made a call to Mom, who was fine with the idea, before heading out. Movie marathon night? Brielle asked as soon as she opened the door for me, and I gratefully nodded at her psychic ability. Making a beeline to her room, I changed to a much more comfortable pair of clothes before going back to the living room. "Where are your Mom and Dad?" I asked whilst reaching for the popcorn in her hands. The usual. Brielle's parents were barely home, with both of them being doctors and all. Okay, so it's my turn to pick our movies, and I chose the Disney classics. So brace yourself for awesomeness. This was no surprise to me. Brielle would choose Disney over anything, besides food, of course. And that was how I spent my Monday night. Snuggled up next to my best friend, chugging down junk foods. And of course spilling some tea. Turns out Zick and Brielle were official. The rest of the night was spent with us talking more than watching the movie. And we eventually talked ourselves to sleep just before midnight. It was around 5 in the morning when I woke up to the chime of my phone. Nathan had sent me a message and I was giddy just looking at his name on my screen. But all that changed when I opened the message. "I am breaking up with you. 7 years later." It has been 7 years. Most precisely 7 years and 3 months since I last saw him. I had tried calling, texting, and even looking him up on every social media platform known to mankind, but it was like Nathan Callahan never existed. Every single day I wished to call him, to hear his voice, or to simply yell at him, but I no longer wanted to seem desperate. Oh, who am I kidding? I was desperate already. I just did not want to be too desperate. Brielle had helped me to get through my very long period of depression. Who knew frozen yogurt and ice cream could heal a broken heart? Brielle, that's who. My parents were furious when we told them what happened after witnessing me crying all the time. Their anger did not last long and they helped in cheering me up. Dad, on the other hand, he took it too far. He took comforting words to a whole new level, because when he started talking it would feel like a never-ending speech. I still loved him to bits though, speeches and all. The good thing though was that Brielle and Zick became the ultimate high school sweethearts and were still going strong. They were inseparable and it was so sickeningly sweet it made me feel jealous, slightly. Talk about power couple. No one knew where Nathan and his mother disappeared to, including Zick. He had cut all ties with everyone without a warning or a second thought. And since no one knew his relatives, we hit a dead end on our search. Their house was on sale the very next day after his disappearance, furniture and all. I was moving on, just like how he probably did. Everything that reminded me of him, I got rid of. My love for the color pink faded away. I could not look at anything pink without Nathan coming to mind. An adult who lived their life the way they wanted, that was who I am now. My closet was cleared out of all things pink. I had more dark-colored clothes than light, and I liked it that way. I was moving on and Nathan Callahan was nothing but a ghost of the past. Abby, can't you be any faster? Your interview is in 30 minutes. Why did you even wake up late? Brielle called out from the couch she was seated at with a bowl of cereal in hand. I wasn't the one who wanted to have fun at the club until 2 in the morning. I yelled out as I proceeded to search for my black pencil skirt in my now messy closet. Technically, I feel like it was your fault. You should have known better since you were the one with an interview so early in the morning. Not sparing another breath on her, I rolled my eyes. Sighing in relief at the skirt which I had just found at the very bottom, I picked out a fitting jacket to put over my white shirt which had the first 2 buttons open. After making sure that I was presentable enough for the job, I grabbed my purse and the required documents before rushing to the living room. Hey, aren't you supposed to be at work or something? I directed the question to Brielle, who shrugged as she continued munching on her breakfast. I only have to be there by 10, unlike you. I groaned at my misfortune, took an apple and walked out. About 3 years ago, Brielle and I agreed to share a house, considered we would split the payment. But obviously, seeing as I hadn't had a proper job yet, she paid most of it, which she insisted was not a problem. Currently, Brielle is a makeup artist, not to mention the best there is, meaning she only goes to work when she is needed, and need I say she gets paid a lot of cash. She even gets to work with some well-known artists. As for me, I had just applied for a personal assistant position at the Black Company. They own and manage many five-star resorts and hotels, and were the most successful in the business. I was terrified out of my wits to even set foot inside their building. By some miracle, I was able to get there in time. The receptionist directed me to the top floor where the other candidates were. The elevator doors opened and I quickly took a double take on the more than 50 candidates, all wanting the same spot. I was getting really nervous at my slim chances. Not getting a spot here would mean that I was going to follow Dad's wish and enroll into law school. I walked closer to the other candidates as an older woman stepped in from what I assumed to be Mr. Black's office. "Excuse me, everyone. Mr. Black will not be able to make it today, but do not worry, we will still interview you accordingly." She pulled up a clipboard and started calling people in one after the other. With every name called out, another walked away sulking. I did not stand a chance, judging by the type of accomplished-looking people they seemed to be sending away. I huffed out as I threw my purse onto the couch next to Brielle, who seemed to have already gotten back from work. It had taken hours for them to finish the interviews. "What happened? Did you get the job, or do we need to get more tubs of ice cream?" She got up and walked up to me, taking my hands into her own. "Brie," I started with a whisper. "I got the job," I squealed out. It took her a second to start squealing along with me, jumping up and down slightly. We sobered up minutes later when our throats finally dried out. "Okay, I know what this calls for." "Wait for it," she did an imaginary drumroll. "You are finally going to drink with me." I could tell the slight hope in her tone, but she knew that it was impossible. It was the same hope she had been holding on to since college. Let me think. "No." I copied the same enthusiasm she had portrayed. "Worth a try," she mumbled whilst making her way to the kitchen. She walked back in with chocolate and mint ice cream and a packet of M&Ms. Rushing into the kitchen, I took out the spoons and dived onto the couch beside her. At least she didn't suggest a party. Movie night with my best friend was not much, but I liked it that way. Zick dropped by to congratulate me, and we spent the night fighting over a movie which suited us best before finally settling on doing karaoke. I loved those too. The following morning I found myself walking through the Black entrance. The time read 7:30 a.m. and I was pretty happy with myself for not being late. Unfortunately, Mary, the receptionist, did not see it the same. "You should have been here 30 minutes ago. Mr. Black is already in his office." She wished me luck before sending me off. My foot kept tapping against the elevator floor, wishing for it to go much faster. As soon as the door slid open, I was running out like the wind and only stopped outside of Mr. Black's office to calm my breathing. After making sure my breathing was evened out, I fixed my outfit and finally placed my hand on the door handle. I knocked twice before opening the door at the distant come-in that came from the opposite side of it. "Morning, Mr. Black. I am so sorry I was late." I spoke out to the figure standing by the glass wall, staring at the city with his back to me. In the short moment of silence that followed, I surveyed his office, which harbored what could only be expensive furniture. "You should have been here 7 o'clock sharp." The deep yet familiar voice spoke out as the man turned around. Immediately, my breath clogged up in my throat and my heart started racing. He was standing there, right in front of me. He had been here all along. Hiding in plain sight. The man who caused me heartache and made me shed tears enough to form an ocean. Nathan Callahan was back, and not as my boyfriend. He was my boss, Mr. Nathan Black. Ghosts from the past were awakening.